G'day, g'day, ladies and gentlemen. So lovely to have you here again, you beautiful humans. Wonderful to see you. Hi, how are you? I'm currently cold, which is pretty much my default setting here in Canada and has been for quite some time now. But I've been meeting some wonderful people, one of whom I'm going to bring into your hearts and minds today. His name's Andy, and he is the TO of the Wet Coast GT, the Age of Sigmar event coming up here about like 15 minutes south of where I am right now, which is very convenient for me because I've been traveling all over the world for tournaments so far. So it's kind of nice to know that there's one really close. And we're going to have a chat about tournaments and war dollies and the fact that he's a piece of shit that uses Nagash with Grimghast Reapers. And I'm going to unsilence him now so that he can defend himself. Andy, say hello to all the beautiful people at home.
Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be on the show. I feel like I've accomplished a lot in my life, but this is, I think, the high point.
Good. Yeah, no, definitely. For everybody, it's such a high point. And I noticed there was no pushback there on the Grimghast Reaper Nagash shit throwing thing. You were cool with that?
I think it's totally fine. As I said to a number of people, it's really something I was doing for the community because people need to practice against Nagash. I'm happy to use him for that purpose.
So look, we don't need to get into the anti-vax debate, but basically what you were doing is inoculating the community against Nagash. That was what you figured you would do.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like you're like the Batman. You're not necessarily the hero that we want right now, but you are the one that we need.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I like being compared to Batman. That sounds good.
Okay, so someone has asked, Wet Coast, is it really called Wet Coast?
It is really called Wet Coast.
It is really called. Run us through that name.
I don't know. I'm not actually sure where the name comes from, but sometimes Vancouver is called the Wet Coast, or this part of British Columbia. Because
geographically, it's on the West Coast. And it rains.
But it rains a lot. It rains a lot here, yeah. I mean, I don't think you've experienced that much
No,
yet,
not yet.
you will.
I'm looking outside. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's sunny. It's fucking cold still. But it's a really nice place to be. So far, the only time I got real wrecked by the weather was, so I actually shipped a bunch of stuff. Couldn't fit it all in my bags. Had to ship a bunch of stuff because my bags were filled with war dollies and electrical equipment. So I didn't actually have any room for clothes. So I went out to like the depot to get them and I had to walk about 1 kilometer from the bus stop and then it started raining and I was like, fuck. Oh, well, at least this is probably about as bad as it'll get. And then it started snowing and I was like, oh, this is okay because I got covered in snow. And then the snow melted and then it started raining again. And by the time I rocked up, the blokes at the thing, they just had a good old laugh at me and they were like, hey mate, we hate to give you the bad news, but you're in the wrong place. You need to walk about 500 meters up the road. But one of them was super lovely and took pity on me and was like, do you want to jump in the back of the truck? We're going to go and do a load up there right now. It's like, I would fucking adore that because I am dying with cold. So that's the only time that the actual wetness of the coast has affected me. But I went out and I got tanked drunk afterwards, which kind of balanced it out. Sorry, so there's just a few people lighting up. Moist. It's really moist.
That word, moist.
Yeah, I'm not. It's like there's two words I don't love. They're moist and feet, and unfortunately, they can be combined, which makes me very uncomfortable in a lot of different ways. Yeah. So I better hit the Biltmore. Mamdare, am I pronouncing that right? What's Biltmore? Or Andy, can you tell me what Biltmore is? Do you know?
You know what? I know of it, and I've been past it a few times. So I think it's a place to you can go drinking.
Okay, good. Yeah.
And see shows. It's got a bit of a reputation, but I would say I haven't been there myself, so I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So
it has in store. I mean, I can tell you some other places that are sketchy as well.
Well, yeah, good. I love a good sketchy bar. Like, there's nothing better than a dive bar. I remember there was a place across the road from where I used to live in Sydney, and what they used to do like sea shanties on a Monday. I remember the first time I went there, I just unloaded all my boxes. I was wearing like from moving to Sydney, I was wearing fucking footy shorts, thongs, and a singlet, which we would call like in Australia. That's the Australian national outfit, by the way. We would call it a wife beater, which is the singlet, with shorts or footy shorts, and then double pluggers, which means two thongs, a pair of a thong on each foot, which we are. Flip flops?
Right, thongs on the feet. Yeah, I call them flip flops. So
Okay.
when people say thong, I think of something else.
Yeah, I've had that problem a number of times since I've been in the country, and once very, very awkwardly at a clothing store where the girl like looked at me quite suspect and then directed me to the women's lingerie section, and I was like, "Cool, where are they?" And she was like, kind of just like, "Oh, they're right there." And that's when I went, "Oh, you think I want to wear women's underwear. That's why you're confused about this thing." And I know that, I just keep forgetting it. Sweet. Sorry, just need to crank up the audio. I'm just going to play around with the audio just a little bit, just to see, because they're just saying you're a little bit quiet there, Andy. And I'm just going to pop that audio out. Re-rolling ones, just let me know if that's popped it up just a little bit for you. We do like to we are the people's show, so we want to bring all this stuff to the people, obviously. So yeah, so you are the luscious. Luscious is a word that Horror Show Minis doesn't like, which I'm all about. I kind of like the word luscious, and now that you've said that, I'm going to want to use it a bit more. But anyway, this place that I found, it was this dive bar right across the road from where I lived, called The Dock. And anyone who lives in Sydney, you may have been to The Dock, because it's a lovely place. But I remember the first time I went there, I was literally the only one in there. Walked in, the owner was out the front having a smoke, and he just kind of leant his head in and he was like, "Oi, do you know how to pour a beer?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then he just went, "Oh, just get it yourself. I'll be in a minute." And then so I literally just leant over the bar, poured a beer, and then went and had a bit of a drink. So like, I love a good dive bar. The dirtier and the filthier, the better. I'm all about it. People just talking about the words that they love. We're an educational show now. We're teaching people about so many things. But we should probably have a bit of a chat about the thing that we're here to talk about, which is the Wet Coast GT that you are the TO of. And tell me, Andy, what number tournament is this that you've run?
This is my first tournament that I'm running.
So you're a newbie, brand new, which is great. And I guess the just for everyone at home watching, whether you're painting or doing whatever, the reason that I really wanted to get you on and have a talk is not just because you're a legend who kept me laughing even while you shit mixed me with Nagash and Grim Reapers. Like that happened. I still had a lovely time though. And I did give you some beer. You did actually do that. So that, that kind of just like whoop, makes it a lot easier. Shit mixed me twice, in fact, with Grim Blast Reapers. Only once featuring Nagash though. Anyway, basically, sorry. Corin1737 saying, "Trust me to make the stream about alcohol." Well, you're not going to get it from Rob, so you may as well get it from me. Happy 2-month anniversary as well. Lovely to have you here. If we were together, that probably we would have a small bean of a human growing inside of one of us, and that would be lovely. Sorry, every subscriber's anniversary I'm going to relate to having a child with you. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I fear them so much. But the reason I wanted to talk to you is because you're a lovely bloke, but also this is your first tournament. And I think we always talk to people who have run a number of tournaments and they've got like all of these things that they've learnt. And what I'd really like to have a chat about is what you're expecting, what you're worried about, all the things, because I reckon that there are people out there who are maybe thinking about running a tournament or coming up to running their first one or something. And this would be an awesome perspective to pass on. Like, is there anything that you are doing to prep, or are you just kind of sitting there waiting for the waves of chaos to wash over you?
Sure. So, yeah, I guess, the whole concept of running a tournament kind of started last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, we had our sort of community in sort of North Vancouver of Age of Sigmar players, and we had a Facebook group that was kind of slowly growing, but we knew there were other people playing in the Vancouver area, but we didn't know how to reach out to them. So I got in contact with a guy called Jin Singh, who's kind of a Warhammer hero in the area, and he
is that actual name or is that a screen handle?
But that's his name, Jin Singh.
That's fucking awesome. Like, I assume that he's also very cleansing to the body, just like ginseng is, which is a joke that if he is here, if he is listening or he listens to it back, I bet that he has never heard before and is very original of me to make puns. We are in possession of some puns. But yeah, go on. Sorry. So you got in contact with him?
Yeah, and then so he said, well, let's run like an event at the Games Workshop store. They've only got like 5 tables, but we could do like a Triumph and Treachery thing.
Yeah,
just for the idea to get people out and just to sort of be more of a social event.
Definitely.
And to meet new people. So we did that, and we got, I think, around 15 to 20 people, and it was tons of fun, and it ball connecting, and then we did like a doubles tournament, and it was kind of the same kind of thing. Like people got to meet new people that they hadn't maybe played with before. And in terms of running a tournament, it was pretty straightforward because it was very small. But like late last year, the idea of there being Age of Sigmar at Wet Coast sort of came up, and so Dan Miner is the guy running Wet Coast, so he's sort of running the whole event. So I started to talk to him about being the TO for Age of Sigmar, and like I'm fairly nervous about the idea of jumping in, but
yeah, I mean, look,
for me,
it's a big kind of step to take as well. Like it's a big commitment, and there's obviously the worry that comes along with it, which is like, are people going to want to go? Is there going to be demand for it? Is it all going to fall in a fucking heap? Like it is a big risk, and I would say to anyone thinking of taking it, just fucking do it. I mean, looking before you leap has never helped anyone, literally ever. Just go. And that way we can have lots of War Dolly tournaments. But obviously the response has been quite good. You sold out your initial allotment of tickets quite quickly, didn't you?
Yeah, and that was the thing. I mean, I think the time was right. We kind of felt like we were getting this, critical mass of people in our Facebook group who were playing, and so I kind of knew that we would get at least 20. And that we did, fairly quickly. And then,
I remember
Dan Miner said,
this was just when I had just found out that I was moving to Canada, was that when I saw a post, because I said, like, looks like I'm coming to Canada. And someone said, check out Wet Coast GT. And I think I looked online and someone had tweeted that it had sold 16 tickets overnight and was almost at capacity already. I was like, wow, far out. Like, that's fucking awesome. And before, like, people at home, like, I know that we've just had Adepticon, which had 180, 170. And CanCon earlier this year, which was a couple of hundred and all that. But it's not about the size of the event that matters for me. It's about the demand for the event. And if you get an allotment of 20 tickets and you sell out just about all of them overnight, that's a pretty damn good sign of like the demand in the area for it. And I remember the first CanCon was only, I think it was around the 50 mark. Then the second CanCon was 100, and then the third CanCon was 200. And then Clint from Heralds of War, I think he's toying with the idea of even going up from 200 again next year, which just is fucking insanity. But it's obviously, it's not about the size, it's about where that demand is, and obviously it's here, like for the Wet Coast. Like there is demand compared to the number of tickets that you were given.
Definitely. And I guess I mean, right now we're at like 38, I think. I think like if we hit, I'm not sure if we can hit 40, but if we hit 40, then I think it becomes like some other level. I'm not sure. That's
fucking awesome. That's Dad have it. So Australia's telling Australia to have a 400 person tournament. So you're saying like 2 more to make it 40 at Wet Coast.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's awesome. That's exciting. I'm going to be there with the Dispossessed. I'm actually madly converting right now for it because I have 2 models that I need to get converted and ready. Those at home, I'm not sure if this is going to show up particularly well, but right there you've got yourself a little dwarf. I'm converting the Ambots to be dwarven little fellas, so he's flying in there, gets the job done, shows him how it's going. So basically, if you are 2 people out there watching this and you're like, huh, Easter weekend, I could fucking roll some dice and play some War Dollies. Wet Coast GT, let's make it 40. We only need 2 more. That would be fucking sexy as. I mean, if we can make it 600, that'd be great, but we should work it up. It's not even snowing anymore, so no one has an excuse not to.
In terms of...
Sorry. Mr. Mephisto has just thrown some shade saying that I'm bringing my Dispossessed. That means that someone's going to have a buy for round 1. Mr. Mephisto, you can take your laptop or computer or whatever you're watching this on and insert it into the small soundproof compartment that you're currently sitting on, which is exactly what my Dispossessed are going to do to everyone they come up against at Wet Coast. Except apparently for you, Andy, who I am still yet to win a game against. I blame Nagash and Grimghast Reapers. That's going to be it. So you're...
I think Dispossessed are really good.
Yeah, well, you were actually showing me, you sent me a message. So you have the original, like the OG dwarf book from Warhammer Fantasy, like 2nd or 3rd edition or something.
That's right, yeah. I started, dwarves were my first army when I started playing Warhammer in about 1990. You know, I was buying a blister pack of metal dwarves every week.
Yeah, right, yeah.
The money I was making on my little job and, you know... So,
back when you got like 3 in a blister pack, but you needed a unit of 30, so you had to buy 10 of those blister packs to get the unit.
That's right, yeah. And you know, when dwarves were slow back then, and I remember many games of just like foot slugging elf army that would estimate. You know, if one of my dwarves made it to their line of archers, it was a success, you know.
Yeah, I remember playing against Matt Gammy, who's one of the loveliest men in War Dollies from back in Brisbane. And if he's watching, Gam, I love you. He gives wonderful cuddles. But he played Wood Elves back in the day, Wanderers now, and I can remember playing against him with my fucking dwarves and losing like half of my army turn 1. And then turn 2, same thing. And all he'd do is keep dancing around me. And every time I'd turn to face him, he'd move again. And yeah, it was a tough slog. It was one of those things where when the dwarves finally got into grips with you, they could fuck you up. But until then, you were just like, I am so fucking slow. And you know, I see it as an upgrade. Because in old Warhammer Fantasy, dwarves were movement 3. Dwarves are now movement 4. So I'll take that straight to the bank. Anyone who's like Dispossessed aren't competitive, I'm like, well, they were pretty good in Warhammer Fantasy, and now they're a whole inch better. And if any of us know anything, it's that if you could get an extra inch, you would take it. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here to talk about Wet Coast GT. So it's gone, obviously sold more than you were expecting. So what are you doing anything to prepare for that? Like, what are the things that you've been trying to problem solve before they happen?
Yeah, well, you know, I think what I did initially was when I wrote the tournament pack, I showed it before sort of sending it to Dan Miner to put up online. I showed it to a couple of friends, Rob and Darren, and they basically they've got experience with running tournaments or just good experience with Warhammer, and so they back and kind of gave me the thumbs up, and so that was really helpful to have that kind of good starting point. But yeah, I guess, you know, my perspective was, you know, I've done a number of tournaments for Age of Sigmar, LVO a couple of times, and ones here last year, and I guess I tried to think about, okay, what were the things that I didn't like, and how do I avoid, you know, those things happening in this tournament. And things like models being on the right bases.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's for example, if bloodletters are on size bases, then they can fight in 2 ranks, which could make a massive difference, right?
Yeah.
So,
and honestly,
like that.
I think what you're talking about is stuff that almost every community goes through at some point. It's almost like the natural progression of war dollies, like for Age of Sigmar, especially for people converting from Warhammer Fantasy, because there are a lot of people with old Warhammer Fantasy armies that are now converting into like Age of Sigmar. When I was in Australia, it was happening constantly. Almost everyone I've spoken to here, the same thing is kind of the truth. And I think that your communities almost have to start there, like welcoming, be like, you know what, use whatever base sizes they were on your squares, or use this or whatnot. And then as the community progresses, it becomes more like you can focus that a little bit. And that's kind of what I wanted to have a chat about as well, because one of the things I find really exciting is how every single tournament has their own take on what they think should be a part of the tournament game. And I want to say to the chat, before anybody blows up, everybody is allowed to have an opinion on this subject, but unfortunately, none of you are right. And the reason for that is because like variety is the spice of life, and the way that we vote is with our wallet or with our feet, effectively, as whether we go to tournaments. Because there's been a lot of chat recently about the realm rules and the malign sorcery expansion stuff and just everything like that. My personal opinion, which again I'll say is an opinion, and isn't fact, it isn't right, is that I'm starting to find them to slow down the games slightly, but that's only because you have so many armies that have been released that all have a terrain piece and a global board effect and this and that. And they're cool, but then when you combine them with a random realm effect that is like that you have to keep going back and checking, I'm just finding it starting. There are more parts to the game that I feel like in the last edition of the rules, really it felt quite seamless. It felt like cogs spinning together. Whereas now some of it, they feel a little bit clunky, like they're just outside of it. That's been my experience with it, and maybe it's because I don't know them that well. And then, so you've got some tournaments like Adepticon, which by all reports was fantastic, that used everything, and that's fucking cool. But then you've got some places that are like, cool, we'll use the core book, but not malign sorcery. Other places that are like, none of the realm stuff, but we will take the artifacts. And then, for example, could we have a chat about what you've decided to do with Wet Coast? Like what rules you've decided to include and exclude effectively?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important point. I mean, I guess the way I approached it was to think about, okay, as a player, when you start throwing in like extra things like realm effects and there are scenery effects and forget about them anyway, and then towards the end of the game be like, oh yeah, I totally forgot that I could have done this or that. So I wanted to keep it as simple as possible, allow endless spells, obviously the realm artifacts, but I've sort of said that everything else is kind of off the table, because I'm thinking about the community of people here who are going to be going into the tournament, and I think that a lot of them will be fairly new to tournaments, or maybe they've only played a few, and so the more that they know going into it, the better, I think, so that they're comfortable and they'll have a better play experience, I think, because of that.
Definitely. And I like I was saying before, it's almost like everywhere has to go through their thing of like, we play on square bases for this first tournament and then we move forward. I almost think that there's something really nice about that. So just to confirm, so you're not rolling for scenery at this either.
Exactly, yeah.
And see, I actually kind of dig that. I've never played in a tournament where we didn't roll for scenery. And sometimes I know that scenery can actually have like a massive effect on the game. Now, I'm actually for scenery. However, I do like that this game is kind of clearing the decks and just making it very, very based on the playing the game itself. like, and sorry, and Mr. Mephisto has fucking hit the nail on the head that only one scenery roll really matters, and that's Arcane. Now, occasionally, Mystical now is still quite useful for that 6-up save after save on big resistant units or for death and stuff. But at the end of the day, most of the time you're rolling for scenery, you're waiting to see where Arcane is, and then you're either taking it to keep it from your opponent, or you're taking it because you're Stormcast and you want to cast fucking Comet on a 5. Like, that's effectively the only reasons, right? And I kind of like that's not an issue. Like, it can just be a competitive game of Age of Sigmar without having to, where it's more about your tactics. Like, it's almost like I do a bit of running, right? And every now and then they do this thing where they're like, we're going to do a clean running day, guys. That means no technology, no smartwatches, no phones, no headphones. We're just going to run and we're just going to fucking enjoy it. And I thought it was the biggest load of wank I have ever experienced, mostly because I get towards the end of the run and I am like Wolverine after he's taken a lot of hits. I'm just bleeding from weird places. I can't catch my breath. I've got fur growing out everywhere and I just want to stop, but for some reason I can't. And yeah, I just compared myself to Hugh Jackman. Thank you very much, everybody. But it was actually a really cool experience because when I did do that, I noticed the scenery for the first time. I had a whole lot of experiences that I hadn't. And I was like, oh, that was actually really, really cool. And I feel it's kind of going to be the same way. Like when you remove so much of that stuff, and that basically, I think it's going to be a really cool experience, like cleaning the decks and cleaning that away.
Yeah, and something that I did include right from the get-go is I think it's good to have an event, just something that makes that event. So we do have secondary objectives, and so essentially you can earn up to three additional victory points for the scenario. There's things like kill the enemy general, or reduce their biggest unit to less than 50%, or kill their biggest unit, something like that. So, but that's all up front. So people know that going in.
And it's a tactical decision that you can make as a player, and that that your opponent's made. It's not like there's arcane terrain on one side of the board and you're basically rolling to see who gets the arcane terrain. So yeah, so I'm kind of excited for it. I like that idea because I think so far the conversation about tournaments has all been based around what do we include, like what elements do we add in, whether it's malign sorcery realms, malign, you can pick one spell, you can do that or whatnot. So I kind of like that this is the first time that it's like about what do we exclude, and it's right back to kind of the core of it. And I really dig that because when you think about games of Age of Sigmar, it's all about that objective play. And so taking out some of those ancillary bits and pieces means that at the end of the day, all that matters is getting the goal, is those objectives. And I'm really keen to give it a shot because the amount of times you're playing a game and fucking Nagash, because of his big ass base, gets himself next to arcane terrain, and you're just like, okay, you're getting like +4 to cast or something silly now. Like good luck, have fun, thanks for all the fish. So yeah, I'm kind of excited to see where that goes with it. Yourself personally, do you have any cares, concerns, queries, anything like that going into it?
Yeah, I'm again sort of coming from this as being a player in tournaments scenarios. So I initially was going to reveal the scenarios like right before each game,
right?
And
okay.
Then he was sort of saying that maybe again because we have a lot of fairly new people in this tournament, it would be nice if people knew about them. So I emailed them out to everybody just recently, and so people are now able to sort of practice those scenarios, which I think is good, so that at least they know which one they're going to have to do right away for the first game. Because the first game, I always find, that first game at a tournament is so, because
Well,
you're hoping.
that's the one that keeps you up the night before, right? Like that's the one you like. I don't know if you're going to release the matchups beforehand, but that's the one where like you find out who you're playing. If the tournament has published the lists publicly for everyone to see, you're looking at the list of the person you're playing. I fucking love it. I love, and I know that I've spoken to so many players all over the world, and they all say the same thing. They're like, lists, if matchups get published the night before, you sit there and you go on and you look at the list of the person you're playing and you're thinking tactically. I remember being at CanCon at a barbecue with about half of the players, so about 100 guys and girls, all in this tiny little campsite room. And Clint, the TO, walked across the road into his cabin and basically published the matchups. And so then he sent me a message and was like, yep, they're up. And so I turned around and I was like, the matchups are up, and you just saw 100 people in a frenzy whip out their phones and start going through and finding lists and talking about tactics and stuff, and it was fucking great. So I dig it. I like knowing the mission. I like knowing all of that because it gives you that night of panic and terror, and I think it's great.
Yeah, and I'm a fairly inexperienced tournament player, so I've even if I could look at somebody's list, sometimes I probably wouldn't know what half the stuff will do anyway. So I just, usually just kind of learn by playing. But and I've always been able to do fairly well, even with that lack of knowledge. But another concern is like people running out of time in their games. They get 2.5 hours, and so people have to sort of play quickly, and some games will be over quickly. Like, and I've seen that, like certainly.
Well, look, there's no better part of Valor, so there's no games that'll be over in 15, 20 minutes, which is lovely. That's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm okay with that. I'd rather not.
Yeah, but there might be some, armies that can like jump up and ambush and really high movement and can, hamstring their opponent. That might happen, and it's happened to me in tournaments for sure. I remember the Skaven clan scryer just pop up and start shooting half your army off the table, and the game's over.
Yeah, thank God that particular army was a very special kind of fucked up, because it didn't even really offer you the opportunity. You're basically, your only best bet was to have a fuck ton of chaff, like an inordinate amount of chaff, and screen them out. But then even then, they could pop up within 3 inches of you, and they could move as well. Like, it was a fucked thing, and I'm real glad that it's gone the way of the dodo, whether by pointing or removing it and stuff like that. The Goutfire Scorch, it was absolutely upfucked, and only because it wasn't interactive. Like, it was basically like they just do this, and I think I'd actually, before going to a tournament, I'd love to go to a tournament where they didn't tell you the missions beforehand, because that would mean that the army selection would be so much harder and so much more critical as well, because you're basically going like, do I take an army that does really well at some scenarios and I'm counting on there not being 1 or 2 scenarios? Or do you try to put together that toolbox army without a particular win condition that's going to fit everything? Like, that would be an awesome tournament. However, I think you are right in that you've read the tournament goer that is coming to the Wet Coast GT, and there may be people who haven't been to that many 2-dayers before, they haven't done that many big 2Kers before, and they're going to need a bit of time.
Yeah, and hopefully they've got a few games in, and they know to use chaff, so that they don't get steamrolled by somebody doing like an Infinity War in turn 1.
Like, I mean, we don't want to jinx it, but I did actually play a game against him yesterday, day before, and he told me about the concept of the Infinity War. I'd never experienced it before, and I'm pretty sure Avengers comes out the day before or the day after the GT. I think you should take it. Personally, I think you should take it. Just because, when are you going to have the opportunity to play an Avengers Infinity War game when Avengers Infinity War Infinity War has come out.
That's a really good call, actually. And it's kind of funny because just to kind of go off topic for a moment, but you know, the tournaments we went to last year in this area, like on Vancouver Island and Kamloops, we saw a meta that was kind of dominated by destruction,
right?
You know, so Iron Jaws and Beast Claw Raiders, you know, armies that just like smash face, and it was not the meta that we were seeing elsewhere,
right.
You know, which is really interesting.
Well, funny. Okay, so talking about that, what I'm going to do is for those at home. So you're not going to be able to see it, unfortunately, but I'm just going to pop us on this little graphic here, which people will now be seeing, which is available at thehonestwargamer.com. What we have here is basically an image of the current winners of all of the events logged for Age of Sigmar 2.2. And if you look across it, right, across the board, it's mostly the same armies over and over again. Legions of Nagash features very heavily in the top 3. Daughters of Cain featuring there as well. Blades of Khorne, a couple here and there. But mostly, like, if recently Flesh Eater Courts and Skaven obviously jumping up pretty hard. But basically, like, looking at it, you don't see, I think I see two top 3 finishes for destruction in the last, since the start of the year. Since the start of the year, and how many events is that? About 15 events? So, since the start of the year, and 15 events, which means 45 potential places up for grabs. Destruction have taken 2, one which was a second with Iron Jaws, and one which was a second with Gloomspite Gits. So that's pretty telling then that you had a meta that was mostly destruction. And
I mean, it was. I think mentioned earlier. I think he played Iron Jaws like 3 times in one tournament. 3 out of his 5 games was Iron Jaws.
Fuck. But see, this is the thing though, right? There are a lot of Iron Jaws players out there. Like, the meta shows us that there's bunches and bunches of Iron Jaws players turning up for tournaments. They're not doing very well. In fact, they're doing quite poorly. But the thing is though, Iron Jaws are fucking fun to play. I have never met a salty or a disappointed Iron Jaws player. Because obviously their army, they're just like, I'm going to fucking smash shit. And either I do smash shit and I have a good day, or I die, and that's a bit rough. And then I just try to smash as much shit as I can with what I've got left. Like, I've never met a bad Iron Jaws player. I've always had a good time against Iron Jaws players. But they consistently don't perform well. So, yeah, right. So there's a good destruction mix going on and a lot of Iron Jaws.
Yeah, and so just to go back to, you know, the running out of time thing. I mean, yeah, for me as a TO, I'm going to have to, you know, go around and you know, tell people that, like, hey, you've got 15 minutes to go. You know, make sure that both players get the same number of turns, right? And you know, hopefully the game is not so tight that they, you know, they either can finish the game or it's obvious who's going to win, and they can agree on that, you know, because I wouldn't want a game that's tight to have to be ended just because, you know, there's no time left.
Definitely. But you do have to be firm about that. I remember at CanCon once going to roll one last load of dice for what was a pretty important combat, and the beautiful Denny's, who is one of the TOs that helps out Clint, just came up and he was like, dice down. And I went, it's the last roll. And he just put his hands over mine. He cupped them quite gently, and he just put my hands back onto the table, and he was like, I said dice down. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's fair enough. But it is, I mean, it's an interesting conversation that just quick re-rolling ones. There are a bunch of you driving up from Seattle for the tournament. Fuck yes. I assume Seattle's close or far. How far is Seattle from Vancouver? Where are you coming
3
from?
3 hours away.
3 hours away. Fuck yeah, that's like Sydney to Canberra. That's rad. We'll see you there. And can we drink at the venue? Actually, I should have asked that a long time ago. Can we drink at the venue?
Yeah, I think there will be. I think there will be drinking.
Fuck yes, we'll have a beer. Re-rolling ones.
I'm pretty sure. There will be.
I don't know if I've ever met you. I'm really sorry if I have before, but we'll have a beer. That'll be fucking legendary. But yeah, and I think it is kind of tough, like the conversation about finishing games. And I think it's probably the next hurdle that TOs are going to have to overcome. Because the thing that you see, and like we saw it on the stream at Adepticon, even the final for Age of Sigmar, they were two of the top players on the continent. Very, very competitive players. And they got to turn 3. Seraphon versus Daughters of Cain. And the Daughters, and they actually decimated each other's armies quite quickly. But they still only got to turn 3. And it was Relocation Orb. So potentially, depending on a couple of priority rolls and things, it could have swung either way really hard. Now, Seraphon got the win. I just want to confirm this. Seraphon fucking took out Adepticon, and that is awesome. That is amazing. We will discuss that at length at some point, I am sure, but that's great. However, I love that one of the things that you're concerned about for all of this is getting to turn 5 or encouraging people to get as far as they can. Because that, I think, is the next great thing that tournaments need to overcome.
And I think, for like the first scenario at Wet Coast is Star Strike. And, in that one, you score more points for the objectives as later on in the game. Oh, that one's actually quite critical. Like if somebody's starting to kind of make a comeback and is taking the objectives, then they could pull off a win. Even if they're fairly far behind, if they just manage to sneak all the objectives right at the end or something.
Oh, and that's something I've always said about my Dispossessed, is I play an army that does not win until turn 4 or 5. Like, if I'm going to win a game, that's when it's going to be happening. So for me, if we only, and sometimes you're playing a game and the first 2 to 3 turns are so intense that you pretty much get to the end of them and you're like, you know what, mate, it's all pretty much decided. You've got this. Like, we'll work it out for how it goes, but we don't need to stress about time because there's no way I'm coming back. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of game where things go down. Because my personal opinion is that you owe it to your opponent to try and play as many turns as you possibly can. And I don't really have any patience for people. Like, I've had a few people complain, like I've heard them complain, or they've tried to complain to me about it and been like, oh yeah, well, I only thought we were going to get to the end of turn 3, so I played a certain way, and then I felt kind of pressured to. We only had 15 minutes going into turn 4, and my opponent was like, well, we each take a 7.5-minute turn. Like, we can do this. We don't have much left on the board. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, nah, fuck that. If I had 10 minutes left, and I have had 10 minutes left at the end of a round, and been like, we play the last round, 5 minutes each. Fuck yes, let's do this. Like, and we're both watching our clocks being like, you've got 2 minutes. You've got 2 minutes. Come on, you got it. Okay, minute and 30. And we just blitzed through it because we both wanted to get as far into the game as we could. So I think it actually is really important that people start doing that. And the attitude becomes, like, rather than it getting to the end of the game and being like, oh, well, it was all wrapped up by turn 3. It should be like, yeah, but could you have gone to turn 5? Did you have the time? Because if you didn't, you need to have a think about it.
And I think what really helped for me was, I watched the Honest Wargamer show about scenarios, and he talked a fair bit about this scenario might be a good scenario for day 1, and this one might be a good one for day 2. And I really took that advice to heart when I was trying to pick, first of all, which scenarios, and then when they were going to be. Knife to the Heart. That's the one where you can just win in turn 3. So that's the second scenario. So that's another one that could be over quickly. And I like it being kind of early on, because I think that sometimes is a scenario that kind of the boys, as it were. Because to win that scenario actually takes like a good player.
Yeah, it's
know,
not. It's not
to
one.
get the major win.
It's not one where if you have an army that can just camp on a bunch of objectives or anything like that, like you actually like you have to effectively divide and conquer. So actually, do you want to run us through your 5 games and their placements? Like run us down the list of it, just for everyone listening and watching.
Oh, I'll try to remember what I said to people.
Wait. I think I can find it.
Yeah.
I think I can find it because I'm going. I have the official email. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, God. They're just sorry. I just saw that there are a lot of emails that I need to deal with. Probably at a later date tonight when I can be bothered doing it. Here we go. All right. So so they will be. So game 1 is Star Strike. Game 2, Knife to the Heart. Game 3, Duality of Death. Game 4, Total Commitment. And Game 5, Focal Points. Now, the big one, the big 2 for me, in fact, and like Knife to the Heart being in the middle, I really love because on the 3-game day, that means that there is a game that for a number of players will end early, meaning that you're not playing 7.5 hours over the whole day. That's great. I dig that. The 2 that I'm always interested in are the first one on day 2, which is Total Commitment, and then the final one, which you've got as Focal Points. Now, the reason I'm interested about the first one, day 2, is because that is obviously where everybody talks about a Sunday morning army, like an army that plays itself Sunday morning when you are severely hungover. So did that kind of sit anywhere in your planning when you were choosing it?
You know, what my thinking was. I mean, I think on day 1, I wanted to have Duality of Death. And I think me and you had talked about this actually a little bit as well, because, you know, I chose the scenarios because I wanted to have one that had sort of random lives. And I wanted to have one like Knife to the Heart that could end early.
Yeah,
definitely. And then I wanted one a bit like Places of Arcane Power, but, you know, with Places of Arcane Power, you know,
I fucking hate that mission. I think that is a bullshit mission. I love 3 Places of Power, which is Heroes Score. Places of Arcane Power, Wizards and Models with Artifacts. You can fuck right off. Not every army has access to Wizards and Artifacts of Power. And that doesn't just mean Dispossessed. That also includes armies like Beastclaw Raiders and stuff like that. I hate that particular mission. I think that should go and die in a fire just about as much as I do Better Part of Valor. So your choice to avoid it, I'm all about. I love that.
Yeah, you know, and I just felt, you know, like I love seeing like big models like behemoths at events, and so that hopefully that will encourage people to bring those, because they have a good chance with that, you know, being that you can be a behemoth to take the objective.
Yeah, a couple of Stonehorns in Duality of Death is fucked. Like the Moo Cow list, I remember taking that one on once in Duality of Death, and I was like, the fuck am I going to do? Like, I either scratch you to death with your fuck off 3-up save, there's probably, let's be honest, there are probably a couple of Thunder Tusks fucking snowballing me and then healing them in the backfield. And it gives Beastclaw Raiders so Knife to the Heart in GHB 2018 is a lot better than it used to be. So it used to be you needed 5 models to hold an objective, which meant that armies like Beastclaw Raiders couldn't win it unless they somehow got like 4 Mournfang and a big boy over there. Like they were just never going to do it. Now it's better because it's just most models within 6. It's perfect. So I love Knife to the Heart for that reason. And I really dig Duality of Death because it suddenly gives a benefits to monsters and stuff like that. And whereas if you just put a little guy on it, they're like someone that's not a monster but a hero, they're healing. I think it is a fantastic one. So I'm all about Duality.
Yeah, and so Total Commitment, which will be the first game on the second day. You know, I wanted something like, you know, there's no reserves in that, so it forces people that, you know, have armies that maybe focus on having reserves, that they have to think differently.
Yeah.
And also with Total Commitment, it forces you to almost like split your army in 2 in a way, because the objectives are fairly, you know, they're on the flanks. So again, from a sort of tactical perspective, I like it because it's forcing people to really have to about how they're going to divide their force, and which flank are they going to maybe try and take their opponent's objective, and which one are they going to defend, and so on. So for Sunday morning, it may be a bit taxing for some people.
No, I dig it. Usually
people
put like knife to the heart, or one that can end easily and has simple objectives Sunday morning. I fucking love that you've put total commitment, because that means anyone that's got like shit in the underworlds or Stormcast in the sky or something like that, anyone who plays that is going to struggle if they get really fucking tanked. I personally know that total commitment is one of the ones that I struggle with, because dwarves are so slow and my army relies so heavily on multiple buffs, like units buffing each other, and I'm not a fast army either. So I know that that's a really tough one for me, but I love the fact that I have to deal with it. And I think but for me, it comes down to like, people talk about tournaments and they talk about the draw, and people see a really tough opponent and they're like, fuck, I've got Stormcast with a shore charge or something. But I really dig playing them. It's almost like, like when you see all of those typical sporting movies where the team wins it, but they didn't really play the toughest team. So then they go out and the plucky team plays them in like the back streets, because they're like, it doesn't count unless we beat the best. That's kind of how I feel at a tournament as well. Like when Tzeentch were around, I was like, I remember getting drawn against Tzeentch at like the height of their fucked up, everything's messed power, and being like, okay, I'm going to beat Tzeentch. I'm going to do it. That's how I'm going to make this happen. So I'm kind of about it. Wait, sorry, I've just been made aware in the chat that Mr. Mephisto is encouraging a drinking game of some description that involves keeping pace with me, which I'm fucking all for. But I will warn you that the last time, actually, the last time someone did it with me was at a tournament, and he kept pace with me. To his credit, he kept pace with me for the whole game. And it's a story some of you, if you know me, might have heard before. But I rocked up at the table, and he was there with 2 beers, and he was like, I'm fucking excited to play you. And he's a legend. I played him before. He pushed my poo in. We had a great time though, and I was just like, fuck yeah. He's got the right attitude, and clearly he knows that I like to drink. So I was like, all right, sweet, we're gonna do this. So I was like, all right, I'll go grab a couple of beers as well. So I went and got 2 beers and came back. And that was when it kind of clicked that he had 2 beers, one for each of us. Like, it was probably about halfway through the second beer that I realized that. So we knocked back 2 beers in battle round 1. And then we pretty much just kept drinking a beer each per player turn for the rest of the event. And he was not good by the end of that game. Apparently... Yeah, sorry, go on.
To say, Dan, like I'm, as I mentioned to you before we came on air, I'm just coming off of a 6-day bender, so I think like I'm detoxing today. Like I think if you took a blood sample from me, it would have a head on it, So
I love that.
So if you want to drink, please go ahead.
I haven't heard that before. I dig that. But no, but it does mean that people drinking like that, it means your day 2 is always fucking tough, right? It's not an easy one. So I'm kind of excited that it does mean that in my head, like I'm thinking about my army, I'm thinking about my tactics, but the thing that is flashing up the loudest is like this little sign it's quite small because it's an unusual thought for me, but it's saying like, moderate your drinking. Total commitment game 1, day 2. And yeah, because I remember at the Australian Masters 2 years ago, my first game, day 2, was against Goutfire Scorch. And I was like, oh, great. So he deployed 1 model on the table, and then I deployed my entire fucking army. And in the first turn of the game, he was like, okay, so my stuff pops up. And I was like, hey man, I trust you. This is going to take you, what, 20, 30 minutes? And he was like, yeah, probably. Because he obviously had to measure everything. And I was like, there's a dirty couch in the back corner of this pub. I am going to go have a nap. Can you please come and get me once you've finished deploying? And then just tell me what's happened. It was compounded by the fact that my flight the night before had been cancelled, so I hadn't slept for 2 days or whatever. But so I've had the roughest. I know that Jordo of hashtag More Stormcast Than Jordo, my co-host back in Australia, he was at a tournament where someone rocked up for day one, game two, because if you didn't show up for your game, you were immediately kicked from the tournament. And so he rocked up, shook his opponent's hand, and was like, "Mate, you get the win." And then took the foam out of his army case, put it under the table as a pillow, and laid down and just passed out asleep underneath the table for the rest of the game.
It happens, and you know, I need to probably not drink, obviously, as the TO. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
you know, obviously, if people buy me drinks, then that's fine. But you know, I'm gonna try to be good and focus on the.
Yeah, well, you do. You do. I just like at Bobo, where everyone seemed to make it their mission to get me drunk on the stream. I will make it my job to try and get you drunk. But you should 100% resist that. And as re-rolling ones, Mr. Mephisto pointing out quite accurately, when I am talking about drinking at an event or a tournament, I fucking love a drink. I love getting on the sauce. I love getting drunk with War Dolly pushes. It's a great time. But if you can't handle your drink and you get to the point where you're knocking over models or fucking stuff up, then that's not cool. Like, it's kind of like how we all exist as human beings, whereas you need to know your limits and not go past them, because otherwise you make it really unpleasant for your opponent. So yes, to those in the chat, I 100% agree. I have met people who could put it away so famously that it was ridiculous, and I found myself getting caught up trying to keep up with them. Tim Reeves, shout out to Tim Reeves if you're listening from Vietnam, where I believe you're living next to a train line above a cafe. He once played a lovely bloke called Pasquale Barilla in Australia. And it was a local tournament, so they were playing at home. Alcohol featured very heavily. And basically, he knew that he couldn't beat him as far as the game went, but he did know that he could outdrink him. So he just encouraged drinking to the point where I think Squalls ended up passed out, which counted as conceding by their tournament pack. And see that, while some people might say is a valid strategy, and just like throwing a brick through the window is a valid strategy, at a 5-game, 2-day tournament, that's not the kind of way you want to be playing.
Oh, and I think, you know, the last scenario is focal points, and you know, really that's my favorite scenario.
Yeah.
Just because I think you know where all the objectives are. There's lots of objectives, and think about how you're going to play that game.
Definitely. And if it's still up on Twitch, if you're at home, go back and have a look at the stream from CanCon, because it was the last game at CanCon as well, and it was a fantastic game. It really does make you think, because you've got a lot of different places to think about and stuff. So yeah, I really dig it. I think it's a great choice as the final mission.
Exactly. Yeah, I think there'll be some great games in that final game 5. It's been great. You know, I've been playing a lot of people out there who are trying to kind of decide on their list. You know, they've got you in about 2 weeks, just under 2 weeks now, and you know, people have to decide, and because maybe they need to paint stuff, and you know, so it's really fun to that sort of exciting period where they're like, oh my god, I have to really actually choose, you know, which army I'm running and which list I'm running and everything. And that's been a really cool part of this experience of being the TO, is kind of watching people get excited. like my friends Eric and Alex and Hillary and Veronica
Who
and Karen, I
I'm
mentioned.
actually, yeah, I'm recognizing some of these names. Some who I've met, some who I've chatted to on Facebook. So if you do want to give a shout out to anyone, go right ahead.
All right. Yeah, I mean, those are the main guys I play with, you know. And
Do you want to throw any shade? I guess is the other thing. Is there shade that you would like to throw?
I don't think so. You know, I think that those guys will do well, you know, and I think you say, like, you know, there's been this kind of learning in terms of Age of Sigmar, but I think everyone has kind of matured in the game in the last sort of 6 months, I think, or 10 months, you know, and so I'm actually really curious to see what happens, because you know, it sounds like there's some players coming up from the US who are going to be good, but you know, we have some really good players in the area, and you know, that really take the game seriously, and you know, they're going to have a good time, and you know, they're fantastic painters as well.
Yeah, I'll attest to that as well.
I think there's going to be some really...
Oh no, sorry, go on. I'll chat in a second.
I think it's going to be some really cool games. I think that it's going to be very interesting to see which armies are that come out on top, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's what for me, that's going to be the kind of the biggest
and so okay, well, we'll wrap it up in a couple of minutes, but before we do, there's two things I want to chat to you about. The first is your predictions for Wet Coast GT. Now, I just want to take you back. So hold on 2 seconds, just for those at home. Back to the stats. So right now, everyone at home isn't looking at my beautiful face anymore, but they are hearing yours and my beautiful voices. Now, the stats show us that of the last 15 odd tournaments, they have been dominated by Legions of Nagash in some form. Probably secondary, it looks like Daughters of Cain, Hosts of Slaanesh, and Beasts of Chaos have a couple. Deepkin are doing quite well. So what's your prediction?
Yeah, I think that those kind of top level armies are going to be up there. I think Beasts of Chaos right now are really strong, and I think that there's so many different builds that you can do. I'm kind of hoping that there'll be somebody that will have something that no one is expecting,
like Dispossessed.
Yeah, well, yeah, and just there'll be something that they, you know, to fight against.
Yeah, like Dispossessed, obviously.
Dispossessed, yeah. So, Nighthaunt is an army that I think is, you know, ready for some. I've been seeing Nighthaunt there, you know, kind of being the bridesmaid and never the bride.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But I think there are some builds, shenanigans with Nighthaunt that people are not ready for, and I think that we might see a strong showing from them as well. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see Nighthaunt make a bit of a showing, but a big part is because so many of their units you see in Legions of Nagash armies, and you see them there, and it's like, okay, but they're a Nighthaunt unit that are also in Legions of Nagash. So I would love to see them do well, because really, for a lot of those wins that you see with Legions of Nagash, they are leaning on a Nighthaunt unit. And let's not beat around the bush. It's Grimghast Reapers and Chain Rasp. That is the two that a fuck ton of those Legions of the Nagash armies lent on to get them to the top. So I'd love to see Nighthaunt do it.
Yeah, like I played a really strong Nighthaunt army here at Kipper's Melee, which is in Nanaimo on Vancouver Island, and you know, the guy just had like 2 massive blobs of Chain Rasp the usual kind of support characters, and I won narrowly, but like it was really it was a really tough game, and I think he won all of his other games, and he could have really actually won the whole event.
Yeah, cleaned house.
Yeah, exactly. I think that they are a kind of a dark horse. The event.
Yeah, I'd say that. I'm actually keen to see, like you say, there's obviously a strong amount of destruction in the area. There's new books coming for Slaanesh and Fire Slayers as well, which is just a whole nother fucking subject that we won't get to today. But that excites me because we might see some Slaanesh and Fire Slayers coming that maybe are getting the last of it. So yeah, I'm kind of excited. But look,
just one other thing I'll mention maybe is
yeah,
that,
definitely.
Like the Corn book just dropped. And I play Corn, and
yeah,
I think that still, the kind of the so-called net lists haven't really appeared for that army yet.
Yeah,
so I think
true.
that's another army that, if somebody brings something that has a mechanic that people aren't ready for,
it'll take them by surprise.
yeah, because they have some really good builds both for demons and for the mortals. So I could see somebody showing up with a Corn army that nobody's ready for, and
Yeah, that's true. And I like that by the time Wet Coast comes around, Corn will have been out for long enough that people can, if they want to, know what they do. It's not like they'll take people by surprise. So yeah, I'd be okay with that. I'd like to see that. Now, just quickly, so there's one more thing that we need to talk about before it will be time to say goodbye. And we'll probably get you back to have a chat about Wet Coast again just before it kicks off later this month. But is there anything you would like to say, any shout outs, spruiks, anything that you would like to throw out there before I take you through your last thing on the stream today?
I guess the last thing I was going to mention is if there's an odd number of players, then I might bring my Wanderers.
Oh, wicked! Fuck yeah!
So there's an army that nobody will be prepared to fight.
Yeah, that's a cool buy buster as well. Yeah, Wanderers rocking up would be fucking sick.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a cool buy buster because it's not like someone rocks up and the buy buster is an army that they have played 1,000 times before. Which is fair enough. Like, I know that a lot of tournaments, they try to have a buy buster that people will know to kind of make it a bit more fluid and streamlined. That is a logical idea. But having a buy buster that means that someone is playing against a fun army really fucking excites me.
But no, I don't think there's any other shout outs. I mean, it's just it's been so much fun to see the community get excited about this tournament. This is really our first
biggie
point tournament.
Yeah,
first biggie. Yeah, for the area.
First, the OG biggie. Well, look, it wasn't that long ago that CanCon was the OG biggie back in Australia. I mean, it still is, but it started at the same place. I dig that Wanderers thing. Okay, well, we're in a week or two's time. I'm going to start doing a bit of stuff on a lot of those lesser represented things. So I'll get you back on to chat about that then. But the last thing that we have to do, I don't know if you can currently see a screen, but what I am holding up is one of the last packs of Roblin Honest Wargamer dice. We're currently waiting on trying to get some more. So this is one of the last packs available. And as I like to do with all of my guests the first time I have them on, is get fucked trivia. So basically I'm going to throw out a really fucking tricky question at you. And either you know the answer and you'll win yourself these dice, which I hope is unlikely because I try to pick really tricky fucking questions. Now, in the past, questions have involved things like, how many tentacles does a Mutalith Vortex Beast have? So that's just to give you an idea of where you're going. So 5 dice up for grabs. If you can answer this question, now you're only going to have 3 seconds to answer the question, okay? So there's no time for Googling. There's no time. It's either fucking you know it Or if you don't know it, you say the typical Aussie phrase of, oh, get fucked, mate. In which case, that's basically saying you don't know it. Or you can take a stab in the dark. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, Andy. Your question is, as of the latest update, how many endless spells are in Azir? You have 3 seconds.
I'm fucked, mate.
Oh, great. I'm going to leave that hanging in the chat just to see if anybody can get it without Googling it, without going onto your Azir to check it. See if anyone can get it. It is a toughie, but that's what they're meant to be. So no dice for you, unfortunately. Wet Coast GT coming later this month. Sorry, what are the dates again for that one?
It's April 20 to 21.
April 20 and 21. Best way to spend Easter.
Basically the day after Good Friday.
Yeah, good one. I love it. So people probably have time off. 38 players so far. So if there's a couple of people sneaking around thinking about whether they want to get tickets, let's take it to fucking 40. That would be sexy as hell. So that would be real great. I'd have a great time there. So we got some guesses coming in. Dad Hammer saying 32. We got a few. We'll see if anybody else gets close. But thank you very much, Andy. It's been wonderful to have you.
This has been totally fun.
Great. Yeah, we'll get you back because we obviously need to talk about Wanderers and when we get closer and we get through to list submission and shit like that, obviously there's more stuff to talk about. So we'll definitely have a chat in a little bit. But thank you so much.
And I need to explain to people, how to beat Alex,
Okay, right. So
that'll be
that's a bit. So you a whole show on basically beating one person. Yeah, good. We can do that. All right. See you later, mate.
Bye.
Okay, so for those of you who are still guessing about how many the people who are trying to work it out, Mr. Mephisto, one Umbral spell portal and the rest are meaningless. The thing you have to remember, Mr. Mephisto, is it's not just the generic ones. When you go up to look up endless spells, it has all of them for all of the different armies and stuff like that, which definitely raises the amount from where it first started at I think 10 or 13. And the correct answer is 33. There are 33. Sorry, just give me 2 seconds. So if you're playing at home, the answer is 33. 33 endless spells currently there. Now, there's obviously also all of the stuff coming up along the next little bit with use your words, Daniel. With the Fire Slayers, obviously getting their stuff, and the new... Yeah, I know, Dad Hammer, you were so fucking close. 32 was real good. But unfortunately, yeah, there is only those three. 33. They're just out by one. The new death ones, everyone can get. Yeah, that's true. All of the new stuff and coming out that they've just done. It looks real good. Now, so Mr. Mephisto, I don't know what challenge I threw out there, but let me know. That's good. So now I think you might be hearing a bit of rustling, ladies and gentlemen. That rustling that you're hearing in the bushes and that dirty chuckle coming through is my next guest for today. And now some of you may know him. I've had him on the show before. He's a beautiful man. He plays a fucking dead shit army. And which is okay because he's lovely and he plays a couple of other cool armies. Now he has a blog / social media empire, which is the Rune Axe Wargaming. And please give a great big hearty welcome to friend of the show, Gabe. Gabe, how you doing, mate?
Mate, I'm doing exceptionally well. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. It's lovely to hear some tones from the other side of the world, because it's been a long. Yeah, I haven't been hearing that many Aussie accents, which has been it's been a toughie. So yeah, it's good to hear a little bit of love
no, it's
coming
good to be
through.
here, man.
Hold on. Sorry, Mr. Sorry, I just need to check. Mr. Mephisto is accepting my challenge to go. Oh, drink for drinking again. Okay. So I've obviously been talking a lot of shit about alcohol, and he has decided.
That doesn't sound like you.
Fuck no! I'm usually an absolute picture of moderation and things. Have been ever since I was a wee tack. But yeah, sure, Matt. We'll grab a few beers. Mephisto. The only problem is, this is my issue, right? I mean, all these fucking people, and they're one name in real life, and they obviously have a different name as their tag, which is, you should do that. You should do that. That shouldn't be your shit online.
Definitely do that.
But then I meet them online, and they're like, "Dan," I'm like, "Yeah." And like I give him a big cuddle, and then like I get caught up in talking to them because I get really excited about chatting, and we talk, and then I'm like, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, I'm blah blah," and I'm like, "Thank you for context." Like I was short a lot of context for a while.
Yeah. The earlier in that conversation you can drop that line in, usually the better.
It will help me immeasurably. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a tricky one for me, is trying to keep up with that. No, Mr. Mephisto, you are very consistent with who you are across both social media and Twitch. What I will struggle with is what your face looks like in real life. Because as far as I know, you're like that cartoony, like Jet Set, Radio Future vibe image that I have of you in my head. So I don't know what you look like as a flesh and blood person, is basically what I'm saying. That's exactly you. That's what you look in real life. You are cell shaded, is what you're telling me. That's great. Sorry, I just have to. Sorry, pop this. Sorry, I'm just quickly flicking a message to the lovely Andy, who was just on the show talking to us about the Wet Coast GT. So, oh wow, I just sent my. Oh no, that was a message that I just sent to myself. So what I've got you on here to talk about, obviously, the discussion that we have to have.
Yep.
Is not one that I want to have.
Oh, okay. I like where this is going already.
Yeah, because obviously the discussion that we're going to be having today relates to some models that were revealed at Adepticon.
Yes.
And some of those models are fucking shit.
Well, I think that's a perspective, isn't it?
Well, look, I guess the perspective depends on your attitude towards. I will say the sculpts look beautiful. The sculpts look beautiful.
Are amazing. Yep.
The models that the sculpts are of.
The representation.
Yeah, I'm not hot with so much.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. I don't know how good I feel about. I'm going to say it. Legions or Chaos Dwarden getting models before Dispossessed. That's
that's got to sting a bit.
Doesn't it? It's the fucking world I live in now. It's the world I live in.
What a world.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty interested to see where they go with it, because traditionally Forge World has always had their own IP, but then a lot of models have come across, like the Tyranid Trigon used to be a Forge World model, the Imperial Guard Valkyrie used to be a Forge World model, and they've all come over to plastic. So
yeah.
I'm not holding my breath, and I'll be incredibly disappointed if after I've spent all this money, they then release cheaper, better plastic versions of all of these models.
Yeah.
But, I'm not going to turn down, new sculpts.
I think it feels unlikely. Like, it seems unlikely that they're going to go a whole new range. I would think it seems more likely. Yeah, fucking people in the chat laughing at me now. Yeah, fuck you all. Yeah, Games Workshop, Chaos Draws, Mephisto's laughing his ass off. Rerolling Ones did think I was talking about the mask, and bless you for not immediately thinking that it was my ancient hate of Chaos Dwarves. But yeah, I'd be surprised. I like that they've said that they're a part of this Iron Sworn or whatever they're calling the metal ones, and they're Chaos Dwarves, they're ogres, they're all of that mixed into one.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you go.
Yeah, no, I get the feeling that we'll be seeing maybe some new models that could be used as heroes, or will have rules.
Definitely.
You know, like berserkers or specific units that can be added. But I think we would have seen more if there was a whole army coming.
Yeah, and I think Warcry, I am probably most excited about Warcry than I have about any release for quite a while.
Really? It's tickled you that hard?
Yeah. Oh man, when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be like skirmish again. It'll just be like a generic rule set. It might take off, might not. And then they said no, it's a separate game. And then they started releasing models. And then the kicker came in, and they were like, all 6 factions are chaos, and that just sold me. I'm a bit upset that they've backpedaled to please all the lesser grand alliances, but you know, got to keep the masses happy.
You can we can have a discussion off air about using the term lesser grand alliances. This is an inclusive space where we consider all armies to be viable except for legions of Asgore, because they're obviously hot shit. But like that one's just a logical one. But I dig that other alliances will have rules. And I know that a lot of people were disappointed with the reveal that it's just chaos, but that actually really excited me. Because what it reminded me of is so I started with Warhammer when I was...
hey, there we go. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Dropped a little bit. It seems to do that sometimes.
I just dropped out. Someone tried to call me and it cut out my connection.
You're so fucking popular, man. Can you stop talking about Chaos Dwarves with other people for 30 seconds and talk to Chaos Dwarves with me?
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
Please. I am a demanding hobby girlfriend. And people in the chat, I am your hobby spouse. So I am needy and I require a lot of attention. So thank you very much. And thank you, Gabe, for keeping it.
No worries.
Obviously, though I will admit, I do like that you obviously had the choice of the other call and you decided to stay with us.
Oh, mate, always.
So
always.
Yeah, that's good. Look, I got started like seriously into the hobby with, I think it was released in White Dwarf, and it was like, I think it might have been called Path to Glory. And it was a Chaos Warband thing where you started with a hero and a handful of models, and it effectively is what Path to Glory is now, except you didn't get units. It was very much like skirmish kind of thing, but it was all Chaos Warbands. So it was Chaos Warriors and Marauders and Chosen and Knights, and I fucking loved it. Because the thing is, even though stuff is set in the realms of Chaos and they are Chaos Warbands, that for me, they can still be very personal. Like, I loved the story of a warband who were trying... Their whole shtick was that they were regular fucking humans that had been, like, they had nowhere to go. And the only way that they could see to survive was to try and gain the favor of one of the gods of chaos. And that, for me, it's a very human story. It's a very exciting story. And it really kind of excited me. So I don't hate that Warcry is all chaos with other options.
I think it's... Yeah, sorry.
No, go.
I think it's good that they have opened it up and that they've said that it's expanding. That was kind of, you know, there are a lot of people who were bummed when it first came out and they're like, well, it's only 6 warbands, but I think it wouldn't surprise me if there's a lot of expansion and support. And I think it would be a great game for that. I think it looks pretty narrative, pretty fun, and just a different pace to probably the traditional tabletop games. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think everything that I've seen so far, I'm just jazzed about it.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think it's interesting. So when Skirmish came out, the one thing that didn't grab me about Skirmish was that Mr. Mephisto saying that I'm an international treasure. Nah, you are.
Aw, cute.
Fucking love you, you cel-shaded looking babe. When Skirmish came out, I really liked it, but I also felt like it was a bit too open. There wasn't enough character to it, and so it kind of lost me.
Yep.
And then I actually went back and I played some Mordheim, and I realized how much I fucking hated the upkeep of Mordheim. Like in the chat, if you played Mordheim, it was a great game. Don't get me wrong. They were tense. It was cinematic. As long as you weren't playing with fuckers who played Johan the Knife, it was a really, really good game. But the upkeep beforehand and afterwards, and the people you were playing, you just had to trust that they hadn't lied and just bought a fuck ton of shit with gold and warpstone they didn't have. Like all of that ancillary is what stopped me playing it. And on the 40k side of things, I use the Necromunda models to play Kill Team because I don't have the mental or emotional capacity for the upkeep that's required to play a game of Necromunda, which could be because I don't understand the game well enough. But I love that Kill Team is a really tight game. There's leveling up and there's enough like character in the models, but then also the post game and the pre game is relatively quick. That's on a 40k side of things, and this is Age of Sigmar Mondays, so we'll leave that right alone. But then obviously Warhammer Underworlds came along, right?
Yes.
And every character was very specific. They were named. They couldn't be changed. They were upgraded.
Yeah, exactly.
And you saw people build whole things around buffing up one character in their warband who they kept back until they were this fucking powerhouse and then just unleashed them. And I really dig, like, I hope that, but the thing is though, it was still a card dice game. It wasn't Warhammer. So, and I found, I don't know about you, like I'd like to know what you think. I found Underworlds much more competitive than narrative, which I think was the intent, right?
Yeah, I think that was definitely the intent. They've certainly marketed it that way. And so what I'm hoping is Warcry kind of came out of nowhere a little bit. What I'm hoping is that it's a lot more of a, because as I've kind of gone through the different stages of being competitive and then not being competitive and stuff, at the moment I'm really looking forward to just having, like, is enjoying games and having fun, right?
Yeah.
And Warcry, everything that I've heard so far, sounds like it's just gonna be fun.
Yeah.
And so I'm really looking forward. I'm gonna be diving headlong into it and doing a bunch of content on it and stuff like that. But my hope is that it's a really solid rule set and that it gets a fair bit of support moving forward. I'd love to see, them release a season of Destruction warbands and then a season of Death warbands and Order warbands and stuff. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
And it would, and it's an easy marketing tool because they can go, oh, we've made 6 to 8 models. Bam, let's throw that out. Bunch of people will buy it, and it'll just carry on. The game will keep growing and evolving, and I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be great.
And I also think it speaks to, because there are people out there who play or are interested in wargaming in lots of different areas, in 40k and stuff like that, and you see them, they play role-playing games, or they play Kill Team, but they don't play full 40k, or they still, you want to talk about upkeep, I still love Inquisitor. Fucking love that game. Yeah. And like, that is the one game that for me is storyline enough that I don't care about the hours of upkeep involved, because it's but I've never tried to play it competitively. Every time I played Inquisitor, it was very storyline. It felt like we were playing something out of one of the novels, and I fucking love that. But I feel like maybe this is going to sit in that really happy place where you can play a tense competitive game.
Yeah.
But hopefully they've got Shadespire, they've got Underworlds as their IP for competitive, balanced play.
Yeah.
So hopefully this can be a bit more leaning towards story. Because let's be honest, Mordheim was much more of a story-based thing than competitive. And I hope that's what we need.
I played Mordheim a couple of times in a, you know, quote unquote competitive setting, and it just doesn't. I didn't find that held up, because usually one person in the league would just snowball, and you'd end up with some triple moving flying vampire that could leap from building to building.
While you stood there going like, motherfucker, my dude's got a fucking blunderbuss. I'm gonna stand here while you take out my entire fucking team. Posty 30 dropping in saying, what's this? This is Age of Sigmar Mondays on Vancouver time, featuring currently Gabe from Australia, who is the author, the penman, the stylist behind Rune Axe Wargaming. We're talking about Chaos Dwarves, which we've just seen at least one model released, coming soon to Warcry. And Posty 30, I have to say, thank you. I hope you are a Posty, because I recently moved to a new apartment here in Vancouver, which you might tell by the different colour of the couch that I'm sitting on. And I have had no bedding for 2 days. It has been a cold 2 nights. And today, the Posty delivered my bedding. And fuck, it looks good. I'm super excited. I just can't wait.
Super excited to go to bed.
Oh, mate. I'm excited for a bedtime with a blanket that covers more than that. Oh, damn it. It's Potsy. Yeah, no, I see what I see.
Oh, so not a Posty.
It's Potsy. Damn. Yeah, okay. I got really excited that you're a postman or postwoman. But in my defense, I found out just as I left Australia that my eyes are for shit. And my glasses that had to be made by a man who makes glasses are still on the way. Excellent. I can call you Posty. I can call you Posty though. Okay, great. I apologise in advance if I make that mistake in the future. Lovely to meet you, by the way. Welcome to Australian AoS Mondays from Vancouver. Yeah, so Gabe, you're excited about where Warcry is going to go. Do you want that then to build with those models into a full army, or would you be perfectly happy if the Chaos Dwarves that you get in that are totally separate to everything else?
Look, I'd be happy if they were just standalone warbeans. Mostly for the sake of my wallet, because I know that I know for a fact that I am going to collect all 6 of these warbands.
Yep.
And if all 6 of those warbands turn into fully fleshed out armies, I'm in a world of pain. So I think, don't get me wrong, new models, new armies, fantastic.
Hobby butterfly, yeah.
Exactly. But it sets a dangerous tone for my collecting habits.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. Like I saw those and I was like, I love the models, and I will only admit this once. I fucking love that Chaos Dwarf model.
He looks pretty sick.
Oh,
and that's the thing.
The medallion, beard protector, the helmet, like all of it. I fucking loved it. But I will not play that. I love the ogre. I will not play that warband on principle. But God, I love those sculpts. So yeah, I'm excited. I really hope we get. They have. Look at Games Workshop, and sometimes people like to act like they're the big bad, like they're chasing all of our money and all of that. And at the end of the day, I say go for it, because they are consistently every week. Let's remember, every single fucking week, whether it's 40k or Age of Sigmar, we get fresh, hot War Dolly sculpts. We get new models, we get new games, we get new books, we get new fucking everything. There is no company on the world that's matching that. And so at the end of the day, I'm never really going to have a big problem, because I think that the work that they do is shit hot. But that's from my point of view. Other people might have more involved perspectives and whatnot, but that's how I feel about it. So I'm all about what they're doing, and yeah, they're releasing a new game called Warcry. There's going to be a fuck ton of great sculpts, and at the end of the day, I'm probably going to want them all, and I have no problem with that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's gonna be a good time. I'm really looking forward to it. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna fuck my wallet hard.
Oh yeah, 100%. It has to, because otherwise, yeah, it's gonna be an expensive time. But I'm hoping that they yeah, I just want it to release already. So I can get my hands on it all.
No
'Cause
patience.
at the moment, now that I've seen everything, I'm like, all right, you've convinced me. Let's get this over with.
Yeah, let's. You know what? You're gonna be coming for my wallet at some point. Let's just fucking do it.
Yeah.
Grixty, drop it in. Grixty, you're a fucking legend. For those who weren't here last week, Paul, all the way back in Australia, is the Swifthawk meta. That man is he took Swifthawks from nothing on the stats to 3-3 at CanCon. You can still see the game if you go after this. Don't leave now, but you can still watch the game. It's game 3 from CanCon, where he went up against a Sylvaneth army and took them apart. And also is a legendary fucking bloke. Gold Bear 44S. Is it quiet for anyone else? Okay, so just quickly, we're just going to throw it out there. We're going to crowdsource some information. Are we sounding a little bit quiet to you, everyone out there? Please just let us know. Because, well, by let us know, I mean let me know, because then all I will do is I'll press a couple of buttons and try to crank that sound just a little bit good to get a bit more out. Because obviously, Gold Bear, I don't know where you are, but I need to get my voice from wherever the fuck I am to wherever the fuck you are, and so I'm going to need to crank that. And
I've got to say, I think that's the first time someone said I've been too quiet. Hey.
Yeah, that's never been.
Usually everyone's like, Gabe. Yelling again.
Gabe.
And I'm like, oh no.
No, I'm not yelling. I'm just excited. That's right, Gabe. I'm gonna crank Gabe up by just a couple little decibels. Now, chat. If that becomes too much for you, the guest is a little low. Okay, Gabe. Well, this is the problem. Is I've had 2 guests on today, and the thing is I'm trying to balancing sound between them. So, Gabe, I'm just gonna crank you up a little bit. Now, talk to the people. Tell them you love them.
I've got a lot of time and love for the Honest Wargamer chat.
Yeah, good. Speaking of Honest Wargamer chat, I mentioned last week that I was going to try and start slipping a few commands into Nightbot. Now,
okay.
Here's the thing. Okay. Gabe, chat. I trust you to not tell Rob or Scrivo that I've done this, because they're hidden deep in Nightbot's subroutines. But if you type, oh god, Mephisto's made a clip. This seems possible. So first of all, the thing that I want to point out is that prior to Bobo, with the release of the workbook and the Honest Wargamer website, there are a fuck ton of things. Like if you hear us use a phrase like sorry, I'm just typing in right now. Like get the gold, and you put that in, it's going to take you to the workbook and the point that you want to know about it. So all of the phrases that we use in regards to how we describe games are in Nightbot to take you. But more importantly, what's hidden in Nightbot, and that I need you to try and use. But here's the thing. I want to see how many people can do it without getting caught, without Rob realizing. Because as soon as he finds out, he's going to go through and he's going to hunt down my hidden commands. So if you are listening, don't tell them, please. So in the chat, someone type in !dispossessed. And let's just see, because I'm pretty sure they should be installed by now.
Isn't that just a skull emoji?
No, so Nightbot has correctly responded to !dispossessed. There's also only a 5-second refresh on it. So as long as people type it once every 5 seconds, it can keep going up. Also, there's !Legion if someone wants to try that one. Exclamation point Legion should give us a different response. So we'll see. Actually, there's a little bit of a delay, so we'll see if people give that one a shot. But basically, yep, good. That one's working as well. Good to know. And the last one, this one's only for use on stream when we're streaming games. So only when a game is being streamed is this one to be used. Because I feel like he might not catch this one even if he catches the other ones. And that's exclamation mark fail. Because I feel like that one he might miss. And I just put a lovely Australian colloquialism in under exclamation mark fail.
Excellent.
So that one is to be used when someone, if we've got a stream and someone looks like he's done a really fucked it up, it's going to tell you, well, he looks like he's got about as much chance as a fart in a hurricane, which is a lovely Australian colloquialism that I grew up with. So those are the 3 that I've hidden for this week. Every week I'm going to hide a new one in Nightbot subroutines until I'm caught, and then it will stop. So for everybody out there, try and sneak those into Nightbot on all of the Honest Wargamer shows without the host noticing. And I'll keep adding more and more and more until Nightbot is full of my bullshit commands. Oh, there we go. Nightbot just chiming in, talking about Patreon and how that keeps the show going and how people who are Patreon supporters make better lovers. So that's good news. Now, Gabe, you are in fact playing Legion of Asblar right now, aren't you?
I sure am. I played my first event this past Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
I drove up the mountain to Toowoomba, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours drive, depending on whether you obey the speed limit or not.
Yep. Well,
and
to be fair, whereabouts was it up there?
It was on like Ruthven Street.
So
right
right
in the heart of Toowoomba.
So I lived in Toowoomba for 3 and a bit years. So I know Toowoomba very well, and it used to be a much longer drive before they fixed the roads. Yes,
it did. It's actually a pretty nice drive now. I cruised up there. I had 1,000 points painted, and I thought, well, I'll ride up there, see what I can do, throw some dice on the table. And apparently it's a bit of a rude move to take 12 Kadai and 1,000 points, which are if you're not familiar, they're the fire demons. That
5 up unrendable save. They got like 4 attacks each that do D3 damage a pop.
I think you'll find they have 5 attacks each. But yes, they are insultingly good.
Forge World, so fuck right off.
Yeah, so I took them up there, and I managed to get. It was a 3-game event. I managed to get 2 major wins and a minor loss. I was not without my typical bad luck, failing 4-inch charges with a fully buffed up unit, all that kind of thing.
Yep.
But I managed to land 4th place in in the final standings, which I was happy with.
Not bad.
And also nabbed best painted somehow.
Yeah, I will. As I said to you, so for those at home, when Gabe painted his first unit, he sent me a photo of it, and I responded and I was like, they are fucking beautifully painted. Shame about the models, though. So I only wish that you'd put your incredible skill at painting to work on a different army, but still. Van Javier Sass, who I probably just butchered the name, and if you want to put it in there phonetically for me, I will learn it and I will never forget it. Thank you. Couple of months with Twitch Prime. Fucking legend. Lovely to have you here. And Gary Howe 87 says Gabe and I had a cracker of a game. So Gabe.
Yeah, I played Gary. Gary was so he had a death rattle.
Death rattle.
Yeah, well, it was Grand Host of Nagash, but it was pretty much all death rattle and then a skeleton. Yeah, and so that was the army where I sent 12 Kadai straight up, parked in front of him, failed my turn 1 charge, got double turned and lost my Kadai, which was not how I planned.
Sounds like
Yeah.
sounds like your army really wasn't much of a toolbox and kind of lent very heavily on one trick, and that was
in that game, yes, but I managed to play my ass off somehow and claw a win out of that game. So
yeah, that was
paid off in the long run.
That
It's all part of the plan.
that was it. Well, like basically, I've realized that I got a bunch of references in my brain that I can't get rid of, so I'm going to share them on the stream from now on, and I'm not going to explain the reference. I just want to see if anybody gets it. But basically, your move was pass the ball to Tucker. That's it. You were like, game plan, you spoke to everyone, you were like, pass the ball to Tucker, that's it. And then the Kadai were Tucker and either carried the game for you or lost the game for you.
They certainly played a large part in all three of my games.
They were either they did it and you won, or they didn't and you lost.
Oh no.
Yep.
There we are. Yeah. You're back up.
So I was just basically saying that either they did the work and you won the game, or they didn't and you lost the game. Pretty much?
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much,
basically.
Yep, just like anybody with a Ghoul King on Terrorgeist. Oh no, that's right. They've got like 6 other Terrorgeists in their army. Digital Keegan. Is that old Davey Keegan? Who are you, Digital Keegan? Are you the Keegan that used to employ me? Damn, this guy is actually such a good bloke considering he's an Aussie. News to the stream. Yeah, all of the Aussies on this stream are fuckheads, including your beautiful host. People just stoked that it's not Digital Keegan. Nah, so he's not the Keegan that employed me. That's a real shame. But for the record, Digital Keegan, I fucking love you only because your name associates with another Keegan I know who is a fucking legend who used to employ me. Gabe knows as well. He's back from Australia.
I do.
It's a wonderful pedigree. So you're my friend, whether you want to be or not. So other than that, the other thing to have a quick chat about, obviously, it's not until later this year, and you have an event that you put on as the Rune Axe Wargaming.
I do.
Yeah. So
last year
talk to us about the event.
Sorry.
Tell us about the event. Yeah, go.
So about this time last year, I got a bit frustrated with the fact that not frustrated, that's the wrong word, but I was looking for a tournament that was a bit different. I wanted to play in something that wasn't 2,000 points, that wasn't, your typical singles event, and I couldn't find one anywhere. Australia's got a ton of events, but couldn't find one that was, that kind of tickled my fancy a bit. So
that was what you were looking for.
Yeah, and so I figured it was one of those things where I kind of looked around and I'm like, well, if no one else is going to run it, I might as well. So I started planning a team tournament called the Rune Axe Team Championships, and that happened at the start of November last year. And we had 14 teams of 4 come in from different parts of Australia and all that kind of thing. And it was a ripper time, and so we are running it again.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Now, particularly in this event, you can have you can have duplicate allegiances, but you can't duplicate war scrolls between players. Am I correct?
No, so it's you can have everyone in the same Grand Alliance if you want, but you could only have one Khorne player, you could only have one Seraphon player. So you're limited to one of each allegiance in your team. And then also you can't double up on scrolls. So a mixed order. So
one army, say for example, you had a Nurgle army and a Tzeentch army. One of them could have Warriors of Chaos, and they could have as many Warriors of Chaos units as they want, but the other army can't have a single one. Correct?
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah. So it means that people have to put a bit of planning within their team members to work out who's taking what. A lot of the time it doesn't affect, because it's only really those couple of Chaos armies and then, mixed Grand Alliance armies that would be affected by it. But it makes for, it makes for a good team dynamic. It means that every army is going to be different,
Yep.
and that's kind of the tone that I wanted to set. Is it's an event that's the results don't go towards the national masters rankings or anything like that. It's a very relaxed. There's a bar at the venue which adds to the vibe. And so
I heard stories from last year that the bar added a lot to the vibe.
They made a significant sum of money.
Well, it's not like War Dolly players don't have a disposable income.
Yeah, I basically dragged about 50 or 60 alcoholics along to this venue and emptied their bar. So
alcoholics, otherwise known as Australians. Nemesis 301 just subscribed with Twitch Prime. Lovely to fucking have you. Welcome. Unfortunately, you've subscribed on a day where you're being presented to by the Australian of the team, other than like the fuck ton of British and Swedes who probably have much more classical and lovely accents to listen to. But it's so wonderful to have you here. Welcome. Cheers. Welcome. Have a drink. Treat yourself. Unless it's before midday wherever you are, in which case you probably shouldn't be drinking on like a social level. But you know, champagne breakfast is a thing. You know what? You fucking do you. Lovely to have you. So basically, the team's whole shtick was because you were creating the tournament that you wanted to go to. Correct?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what kind of tournament do I want to go to? What's a fun tournament? Where can people... The biggest thing was it was a weekend that you're playing with your mates, not against your mates.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of guys, it was a bit of a boys' weekend away. A few of the guys came up from Sydney.
Yep.
We had people from all around the state come in. This year, I've already had, I haven't at the event yet or put up ticket sales dates or anything, but I've already had about 6 or 7 teams from interstate.
Fuck.
Like Adelaide, down to Vicky. There's a few teams on the come up, so it's looking to be another ripper one. I've got a bigger function room this year at the same venue.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's shaping up to be another great weekend.
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm excited. I love the concept. The thing that I really dig about it is so often the thing we talk about in Age of Sigmar is a player and an army doing well. And to be honest, that is like, if you want to go into the competitive side of things, that's what we're looking at. That's where it goes. But the teams thing, I've played in one teams event, and that was Sydney GT in its first year. So in its first year, Sydney GT was a 4-player tournament. You had to have a different Grand Alliance for each team member. And I had a spectacular time. I had a wonderful time.
Yeah.
Exactly because of, I came second, which helped. But my team came second. But unfortunately, there's photos floating around online if you can find them. Because I'm an idiot, I forced every member of my team to wear a different outfit from the Ninja Turtles. And then I bought them all and I forced the rest of the team to pay their share. So we each had to wear a Ninja Turtle outfit to that tournament. There's photographic evidence from Sydney GT, I think, Jesus, what was it called? Moab 2017 or 2018 maybe. I don't know. Anyway, but the phrase that you use of you're playing with your mates rather than against your mates was exactly why I loved that event. Because it had come down to the game and you're sitting there playing and you're having a good time with your opponent, and then you turn around to the person on your left and the person on your right and you're talking to them about the game. You're like, I remember just making eye contact with our team captain and we had specifically chosen the person with the least amount of experience to be our team captain because we were like...
That's the spirit.
Exactly. We were, and our matchups were a fucking joke. But basically, also what he did is every game he would give himself the hardest player, and then just turn around to us and be like, "I jumped on the grenade, boys," and it was just the best. But I remember just turning around to him just about every game and making eye contact, and he just looked at me and was like, "Sorry, I'm going to do this for the chat, and then I'll explain to you what it looks like, Gabe." He'd look at me and just be like, which is just a slight open mouth a gentle shaking of the head, a gentle slow
Yeah,
shaking
I
of
know.
the head.
I was about to say, is
Yeah.
it the little shake?
Yeah, and,
of just this is not going well.
but also like the wide eyes of like I just shit myself, like like those three in combination. But it was an awesome event. I had a great time. And I honestly think that it was great. Also, the one time that I looked at my captain and I was making the face of I just shit myself eyes, slow shake of the head and slightly open mouth was the one time he turned back around to me and gave me the thumbs up that everything was good. And every single round of that event, we all got major wins and he got a major loss, except for one round where he got a major win and the entire team got a major loss other than him. But it was beautiful. Not only did my team have a great time against our opponents, we had a great time at the tournament. Papa Penne saying that, oh, Penne, hey mate, great to see you back from Australia. He said that was my favourite tournament, and damn Skippy, it was close to my favourite as well, if not my favourite. Only because you're not only having a good time with the people you're playing against, you're having a good time with the people you're playing with. It's like a team sport, and I fucking dig it. I think it was great. So I'm excited. And the hot news is that if we can make it work, if there's money that I can put towards it and make it happen, I would love to come out and stream it. That is what I want to do. Is come back to Australia after just moving overseas and stream a whole chunk. So like whether that's 2 tables, 1 table, or the whole 4 top. If I can get enough computers and enough webcams, I think that would be fucking awesome. So hopefully there's no promises just yet, but it would be great to be able to stream that one if we can make it financially doable.
Definitely.
There's direct flights from here to there now. Maybe we can, provided I don't lose my apartment. But yeah, so sorry that you haven't even released the info for that yet, and people are hitting you up.
Yeah. So people hit. Yeah, it was a lot better received than I was expecting. I wasn't really sure how the first year was going to go. But the first year we sold tickets out in like 4 days, which kind of gave me a good indicator that it was an event that other people wanted to play in as well.
Yep.
And so at the start of January, which was only for 2 months after the first one, I had people kind of sending me messages being like, hey, just check in. Is it happening again?
Yeah. Hey bro.
And it's
just testing the waters.
Yeah.
That was really good fun. I'd love to come again.
Yeah, and so it's generated a lot of interest, which is great, and I think it's going to be another good year. We've opened up a few more team spots, so it should be bigger and better than ever.
So for anybody who is listening from overseas or anything like that, or internationals, should they get in contact with you? Like, because obviously it's much easier to pick up a ticket even if you're local to Australia, because you're like, it's a flight or it's whatnot. But if you're from New Zealand or ages away, or like one of our foreign neighbors like Tasmania, so people should hit you up, I guess, and get in contact.
Yeah, definitely. If people are interested in traveling for it, probably get in touch with me sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we'll work it out from there. So either on Facebook at the Rune Axe Wargaming.
Yep.
Or on Twitter at the Rune Axe. One of those 2 places are probably the easiest way to find me. If you're a good stalker, you can probably find my personal page pretty easily as well. But yeah, it's if people are interested in coming, I'm more than happy to accommodate that, and we'll work out a way to mitigate costs such as transport and accommodation and all that kind of thing. We'll do what we can to make sure that everyone has an excellent time.
Yeah, well, it's one of the fucking awesome things, right, about War Dollies is that no matter where you go in the world, if you're going over for a tournament and you're like, hey, we're coming here, we have no idea. There are people who will be like, mate, even if they can't take you, they'll give you like clear step by, because we're War Dolly players, right? We are used to a sequenced series of turns and a sequence of rules that we apply. So they can be like, all right, you're going to get off the plane. When you go through, like, I remember when Rob and Nathan were coming to Australia, I remember talking to them, be like, You're going to get off the plane. Australia has very serious concerns about foreigners coming to work here without a visa. Make no mention of the fact that you are working on a stream. The word work, strike it from your vocabulary as you come through customs.
Yeah.
Just say you are here to see some shit and take some photos. And if they ask about all the recording equipment, be like, we also do soundscapes. And anyway, and they came through and he was like, apparently Rob was saying that he told Nathan not to say anything about work, and Nathan was like, oh, fuck them, I'm going to tell them everything and see what they do. It's like, he was shitting himself.
It's like, please don't do that.
please don't get us sent back the day we arrive. Man. But basically they like, and I was like, all right, sweet. And then when you come out, I'm going to meet you here and we're going to drive out and I'll take you to your accommodation and it's all going to be like where they're putting you up. It was really efficient. And the thing is, I think if anyone's thinking about coming to the Rune Axe Teams tournament or any tournament in Australia, hit up the TOs or the people or have a chat to them, because honestly, there is such a wonderful community of people who will do everything they can to help you. And at the very least, they will give you like the places to look for accommodation, the way to get into the country, who to fly with, all of that shit.
Do not fly with Tiger Air
or Jetstar.
Jetstar's not so bad, but every time anyone has flown with Tiger Air interstate for a tournament, their flight has been either delayed significantly or just cancelled completely.
Well, hey,
and it's been a real bad time.
To be fair, though, the only time that I've had a problem was with Virgin in Australia, and that was at Masters when I ended up flying. I literally just stayed at the airport awake like a fucking zombie because I was like, it's going to take me longer to get home. By the time and then I went, I should go home and go to sleep for an hour. Went home, went to sleep for an hour, came back to the airport and played Masters on like an hour's sleep and a lot of alcohol. Which was the problem because I'm scared of flying. So I have to get drunk before I get on a plane, which means that I was drunk and sitting in the airport, which means I was drunk and getting more drunk because I was worried about why my plane had been cancelled. Turns out it was just too late to fly. Anyway, it's fucked. If you are planning on traveling to Australia for an event, get in contact with the TO because they will help you the fuck out hard. And the teams tournament it'd be a good excuse for like a group trip, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's
Four
it's
mates,
a good boys
get
week,
your shit together.
Definitely. Come on over and we'll sort you out and make sure that you have a good time.
Yeah,
so,
and let's be honest, the good thing about Brisbane is it's not like, say, CanCon, which is like you probably have to fly into Sydney and then get yourself to Canberra, which we can make happen. CanCon 2020, let's do it. 440 players, double last time. 440.
Oh, man.
Everybody start hitting up, just tweet at Heralds of War with hashtag 440 and just see if they will do it. But Brisbane is relatively easy because you get into the airport and it's all within the bounds of the city there, so it's not too hard.
Definitely. You're going to drive maybe... It's from the airport to the venue is about half an hour.
Yeah.
And that's, So it's pretty good. Everything's nice and close. But if people want to travel interstate, I've been hassling Nathan. He was talking about bringing a team over from the UK. So if you talk to him, tell him to get his act together.
He talks a big game while he's drunk. But the thing is, though, Nathan is the kind of person that'll talk a big game you'll hear nothing from. And then, 2 days beforehand, he'll be like, all right, so let's do it. And he'll be like, wait, what the fuck? And he's like, well, I said I would, so let's do it.
He's a man of his word.
Well, I think, it's that pragmatical, practical mindset. It's like, well, let's fucking do it. I said I would. Which is a bit like people rocking up to events, and they're like, like Nathan and Rob ended up not wearing any of the clothes they brought to CanCon because people gave them team shirts and team singlets, so they just wore those.
I've seen the Brizhammer and the Mango Mafia.
Brizhammer and Mango Mafia have gotten a bit of a wear now. They've got aprons as well.
They've been at about every event since, I think.
Yeah, yep. It's because you need that classy attire. That's how it makes it good.
Definitely.
So to circle way back to the Chaos Dwarf trade,
Yes.
So new models, new stuff in Warcry. Sorry, we went on a big tangent there for a little while. I'm very sorry.
We did. Sorry, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen of the chat, I'm so sorry. But to rock back around to this conversation about the Chaos Dwarves, which is why we're here and talking, are you expecting to like with your army? Are you expecting to include new models into it, or is the plan to leave the army kind of separate to Warcry? Because I'm kind of interested with Warcry as to what it's going to be.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've got my my tournament army almost built, and I've got that kind of locked in. I've got a couple of big events coming up that I'm taking that to. But hey, man, like I'm playing it by ear. If things go well, I'm not opposed to adding to the army. But I also won't be too upset if they are completely separate entities. So it'll really just depend on on what capacity they're released in. But I'll be getting all of the Warcry stuff anyway, so there's a good chance it'll just plug and play, and I'll go from there.
This is in my future no matter what I do, so I may as well be okay with it.
Pretty much.
So another thing that I just quickly want to talk about, obviously Seraphon, they just had a big win.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They just had a big win at Adepticon, and that's really lovely for them. Those beautiful little scaly fellas. I had an army of them that I bought when the Christmas bundles came out. I bought 2 boxes of the Christmas bundle and put an army together. And then left in Australia and didn't bring with me, which is breaking my fucking heart.
Oh no.
But okay, so I dig a few things about Seraphon, and I want to talk about their win at Adepticon. Now, a part of me, Mr. Mephisto pointing out the maps favoured them and secondaries was kind of okay. I think it's fair to say that any outsider army that wins a tournament got there maybe by some stars aligning, which is I think a fair statement to say, because if you played a straight up game every single time, they were like those standard armies that you see consistently doing well would win consistently. If you just run from the maths. I mean, I've flicked to it a couple of times, but just for the people who haven't seen it yet, I'm just going to flick back to these stats, which are available at thehonestwargamer.com, showing the top results from the 15 or so events that have been added into the stuff. And really, it's all the armies you'd expect to see there. Legion of Gash, left, right, and center, all over it. Slaanesh, quite well. You have the occasional, you've got like 1 Iron Jaws, 1 Free Peoples, 1 Gloomspite, but Stormcast, Deepkin, a Beast of Chaos here. Like it really, for the most part, when you look at it, it really is there. But yes, at the end of the day, there was some luck involved. There was maybe some stuff, but the player playing them took a lower tier army and took the win. So regardless of what you want to talk about, that took skill. Like you don't.
Oh, absolutely.
You don't.
I don't think. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't luck your way through 5 games. Now, I found it a little bit disappointing that it was the stream game, the final game, and they only made it to turn 3. I talked about it earlier in the show that I thought it was a little bit. It was tough because that game could have gone either way, but getting the game finished in the time frame is also a requirement. Like, I've spoken to a lot of Sylvaneth players who have like full fucking redeploys and everything like that, and they're like, oh yeah, I played the game as fast as I could. And I'm like, yeah, you did. You were super efficient, but you took an army that on the whole is really time efficient, which meant that even if you played as fast as you couldn't play any faster than an hour 45, an hour 50 minute game. credit to two blokes back in Australia. Who, I don't know if you know them, but Tom Holdsworth, who I've played at a number of tournaments with like 120 plus plague monks, who got both of them, like both of the units in one, 2 units in one turn, and I was like, oh fuck, he needs to roll hundreds of dice with re-rolls. And that's when I looked up, and on his side of the board, he'd already segmented out his dice into chunks, and he was just like, jump, 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 and then rolled them. And then he was like, he was like, do you mind helping? And I was like, fuck yeah, sure. And he's like, we just need to pick out the ones. So we picked out all the ones, rolled them again. We got to turn 5 with like 20 minutes to spare. So, which is an example of someone going, I'm playing a really slow army, but having the ability to do it. And a few people chatting in the chat, like, that they've lost, round 2, round 3, and they only got to later turns. But if they'd gone 4, 4-5, they possibly would have gotten it. And I agree. I was talking to Andy, my previous guest, about it, and there is a lot that needs to be done to encourage players to get to turn 5. Because it is okay. Sorry, go.
No, you're right. I think there's also a responsibility of, and this is something I've talked about before, is I think there's a responsibility for players to, if you are playing an army that's really involved, playing with a bit of purpose and giving your opponent the opportunity to compete.
Yeah.
Because like there are people up here in Brisbane. Well, when I say up, I mean you're in Canada, so technically we're down. But there's
as far as my ego is concerned, everyone is down from me.
Yeah, and so we've got people up here who play very specific armies because they know that they don't want to play Horde and that they wouldn't get through games. Then we have other people who will play, like I played Pestilence for a large chunk of last year with well over 100 models. Every model's re-rolling hits and blah, 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 blah. And if you play with some purpose and if you're making decisions and thinking during your opponent's turn, you can get through those games relatively efficiently. I'm not saying that that's the case with every army. Some armies are a lot more involved than others. Like a Deepkin army is not going to have too many issues with time because you've got like 20... In the eel build, you've got like 25 models, and by turn 3, everything's dead.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's like the whole reason I ran a Gutbusters army was because everything was ogres except for one unit of grots that I was like, I never even bothered piling in and attacking or throwing with because I was like, they're not going to do shit. They're so useless. But I just wanted big models with an efficient movement phase after playing like a Horde dispossessed army. Re-rolling ones, the world is flat, but because of everything being down from me. I love it. Yeah, fair enough. No, but I live on a mountain on that flat world, so everywhere towards sea level is south from me. It's a mountain built on my own ego and sense of self-importance. But yeah, I think that it's a conversation that will be interesting. I think it's the kind of the next one that needs to be broached because I've spoken to a few people, right? And one conversation that comes up is chess clocks. Now, as a concept, that makes sense. However, what it doesn't deal with is like take Fire Slayers, for example. They have, on the whole, like a unit of Volkite Berserkers have a re-rollable armor save and then a 4-up save after save. So they're rolling a lot of dice in their opponent's turn, which then slows down the combat phase or the armor or the whatever phase of the save phase of your opponent's turn. Or take all of those armies that do things to counter hero phases or like Khorne doing things in your opponent's turn. Basically, there's a lot of stuff that can slow down your opponent's turn. And so if you were to play with chess clocks, you would be constantly pressing the button. It'd be like, I'm rolling 2 dice, press the button before I roll these 2 dice. It wouldn't... Yeah.
I think it's definitely a tricky debate because, as well as certain armies playing a certain way, you've got you know, the scenarios favor armies with a lot of models in them. You know, you've got objective holding, all that kind of thing. And so it is challenging. I think the game is getting a little bit slower.
Yeah.
But I think it comes down to a bit of a gentleman's agreement. If you come up against someone who you know their army takes a bit longer than yours, you give them a little bit of leeway because you know you don't want to deny them the opportunity to compete. But at the same time, you got to make sure that neither you or your opponent are taking the piss and giving the other one a bad experience.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And I think the thing is sometimes, like competitively, and it would be a lie to say that we haven't thought about it. Like my army is an army that wins turn 4, turn 5 in dispossess.
Exactly.
And I do not begrudge a single player for looking at my army and being like, if we don't make it to turn 5, turn 4, he literally doesn't have the movement to get onto my objectives.
Yeah.
Like it's not wrong to think that, but it's how you reward people, how you reward people who go to turn 5 every game. And yes, this is totally excluding the situation where your games are over by turn 3, you know, because you're just like, I physically cannot win this game. Like priority roll goes this way. There's no way I can do it. Whatever. Now, I think there's questions about whether that's rule stuff. I think the other side is that maybe TOs and things just need to understand that the game is getting more complex, which means that maybe we need to be allowing a little bit more time. And I don't know what it goes with. I've heard rumors about some people in some packs coming up, like giving you a point or 2 points per turn you fully complete. And that interests me as well, because that means, let's say you get 2 points a turn that you complete and you do 5 turns in 5 games. So that's like 10 points extra on top of, wait, no, my maths is terrible there. That's 10 points a game. That's 50 extra points, right, across your tournament. Now, if someone only averages going to turn 3 every game, they're only getting, 30 points, right? Okay, look, it's a Monday evening. People can lay off of me with maths. But that's a 20-point swing. Like, that's like a major victory in a lot of packs. Which effectively means that the person that's played 5 turns and has won the game 5 turns by playing full games has a full major victory on someone who won 5 games with only 3. That does read as a good move to me. The trick would be the integrity of players, because
I think the trick would be as well is that you're at the mercy of your opponent to the ceiling of the points that you can earn. Like, let's say if you come up against someone who's going slow, you smash them, you win that game, but you only get points for 3 turns, and someone else has played out a full game and that took them 5 turns. They're now sitting 4 points ahead for no reason. You know, you've both achieved the same thing, but because one opponent was fast and one was slow, you're at a disadvantage now. And I think that's the challenge. It's one of those things where it's one of those questions I don't know if I have an answer to.
Exactly. Like I've been speaking to a couple of people who are talking about a concept of a penalty that is compounded per game you don't get to 5 turns. So if you get, say, like your first game you get to 5 turns, great, no problem. Second game you only get to turn 3. So that's a black mark on you, but it doesn't do anything to you at that point. Then your second game you only get to turn 3. It's like, okay. Then your third game you only get to turn 4. It's like, well, maybe if you only had 2 games that didn't make it to turn 5, you cop a small penalty. But now that you've had 3, you cop a medium. If you cop a 4th, it's like, okay, well, then your penalty is going to be quite it gets exponentially bigger the more, which is, I don't know, maybe that's the fairest way to do it. But then there's also the chance that you just get drawn against 4 fucking slow armies. Like it's messy.
And that's the danger. Yeah.
And I'm willing to admit that I'm a man who is neither intelligent nor sober enough the majority of the time to have the answer to that question.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you in the chat, if you have the answer, Twitter @DanUnsupervised, please tell me. I would love to know what the answer is to not getting to turn 5. However, where this conversation all started with was the fact that Seraphon just won Adepticon. And
yes.
And ultimately, that doesn't take shit away from that. Nothing is taken away.
No, definitely not.
Not
I think
even a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go on.
Because if you asked anyone what's your prediction on what army will win, give me your top 10. I don't think Seraphon would be in any of those top 10s.
Not from
so the fact that he's
180 players, no.
No. And so the fact that he's cleaned up at that size event with that army, I think it's impressive. He must have been playing his ass off to win those games. So good on him.
Tonsenbu, I'm really sorry if I mispronounced that. I'm an Aussie. Our pronunciation is for shit. Says that they use chess clocks and often it's just a secondary. I kind of dig that. That's awesome. And it's interesting to often see how much time you use. That's fucking sick. Yeah, like even just as maybe a practice thing to be like, okay, when I play a game, my turns last for this long. Zench players, learn how long your hero phase turn 1 and 2 takes. You should do that because that is unpleasant for your opponent. Yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting seeing where a lot of like the meta goes, because who would have thought that Seraphon would have taken that out, and it through clever play as well. And the thing I love about Seraphon, and the reason I bought a Seraphon army, is their summoning is fair. They are the only army anywhere in all of Age of Sigmar. And you're fucking at me. I'll fight you. I'll fight all of you in the chat if you disagree with me. I believe Seraphon is the only army with fair summoning, because they have to sacrifice to get anything. Khorne, they get fucking points for units being killed in combat, which is what you want to do with a Khorne army anyway. You have an army without shooting, without magic, that is built for combat. So units dying is what they want. Mr. Mephisto saying, I've already accepted one of your challenges today, Dan. Yeah, fucking bring it, bro. Find me a situation. But Khorne, that's how they want it. Slanesh have a large number of damage 1 attacks, and it's applied stuff, like not mortal wounds, sure, but at the end of the day, that's where they go with it. Beasts of Chaos, like Mr. Mephisto pointing out, Beasts of Chaos, they have to sacrifice to get their summoning. True, but you can sacrifice Ungors to get Chimera. Gabe,
Ungor are people too.
Gabe, as a Beasts of Chaos player, what do you feel the trade-off is between your Ungor and what you can summon with those Ungor?
Oh, look, I actually think the Beasts of Chaos summoning is pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
The tricky part, I think in Beasts of Chaos though, it's a bonus rather than something to build into. Because the only way to really build into it is by taking, there's a great freight, and I cannot remember what it's called, but it's the one that nobody takes because its big shtick is that you can trade a 50-point command point for 1 primordial call point. And it's like, oh, yeah, I could kill a 6-point Ungor Raider Ungor and get the same thing.
Same thing. Fuck off, mate. That's what I'm taking. But yeah, like All Herd. Sorry, Mephisto's chiming in the chat.
That's the one. Yeah, thank you.
But like, to be honest, when I play against Beasts of Chaos, I am always tossing up between targeting the Ungor unit that's been camped next to the basically that's just there's a Bray Shaman who effectively has a shovel and is an old-timey steam engineer just hacking coals into the fire, and those Ungor are the coals. That's effectively what's going on, right? It's 100% right. It is not a good return on an investment, but a couple of turns +1 for just because you get fucking 1, and then D3 for however many you shovel into the fire. You come out ahead pretty quickly. Like
I think you do, yeah, definitely.
Fucking Zinch triggers me pretty hard as well. Is that like, it's like, Zinch, you get him for casting magic. Oh, sorry, you get summoning points for doing that thing that Zinch do really well and want to do to win the game. Like,
and don't forget, you get points for your opponent casting spells too, don't you?
that's where I was going. It's like, not only do you get them for whatever it is that you want to do, but you get them for when your opponent wants to do that. That's fucked. You can go fuck right off. Whoever did that, like, Khorne upsets me. Zinch infuriates me. But then, Legions of Nagash, the grave sites. The grave sites I'm okay with. Grave sites is fine. Returning a summonable unit for 1 command point with no roll required. Like, the Stormcast one, bringing a unit of 20 Sequitors back, like 400 points returned for 1 command point, sounds rough, but it's only on a 5-up. And you can't re-roll it. So you've got a 1 in 3 chance of that happening. Still not fair, because there's not really any risk there, except that you lose a command point that Stormcast probably have coming out of their fucking arsehole. But it's fair. Then you look at Seraphon, who have to sacrifice magic casting by one of the best magic users in the game to get summoning points that aren't even enough to summon stuff that's noticeable until they have sacrificed 2 whole turns of magic. That,
you
for
do
me,
have...
Yeah. Sorry, go.
You do have... No, that's all right. There are builds, though, that, like, with the... I think it was, I want to say Darren Wilson, maybe, who had like the 4 Engine of the God build, and that can do some pretty offensive summoning.
Well, it's not so bad anymore, right? They've changed it, so I don't think they have some... They don't have summoning available. Oh, no, they still have a roll that summons, but they've reduced it. It's like 10 skinks or like 3 rippers. It's not as brutal as it was, I don't think. But
I don't know Seraphon enough to know whether they've turned it back or not.
They were fucked. I will honestly, like, being like, you get a free unit. Okay, I choose a Dread Saurian. On what? On a 3 dice roll, pick whatever result I fucking wanted. So yeah, but Seraphon winning really excites me because that is an army I feel that is very fair. They have a number of janky moves, but the fact that their laser lizards or Bastillodons have an unrendable save, it's like, fair enough, but your multiple damage one attacks or shots will still bring them down because they only have 8 wounds. It's not like they're a 12, 16 wound monster that can do that. They can teleport skinks that can retreat out, but skinks are fragile as fuck. Like, Seraphon, and the reason I wanted to do that army is because they feel really balanced with everything they do.
And I think...
sorry. The last thing, the whole reason we're having this discussion about the result at Adepticon is because they only went to turn 3. And I get it that is a conversation we need to have. But at the end of the day, they're a competitive army, but for me, they are a balanced army. And I love that they came first. I also, full credit to the player, because that would not have been easy to do. And so, I'm all there.
No, I think he's done a good job. I don't want to take away from, like, anything that he's done, because he's won a major event, you know. I think he's done exceptionally well. I've got a mate who plays Seraphon, and they've got some limitations, I think, in some units that, you know, I'd love to see Saurus be better, basically, because they're giant warrior dinosaur men, and they just struggle to kill things, and so. I think with the current trend where they're revisiting certain books, I have high hopes for Seraphon and Ironjaws. I would love to see both of them get an overhaul, because I think they're both in desperate need of one. Ironjaws in particular,
Ironjaws definitely, but they're not, like, here's the thing. Ironjaws are struggling to finish top 3. But that doesn't mean that they are struggling on the whole, right? There are a lot of Ironjaws players out there. There are a lot of people converting to playing Ironjaws.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, but they are struggling competitively.
I think
that is 100%
I think
fair.
they have some definite limits. And you look at what they did with Flesh Eater Courts. They took an army that was, before the summoning, before the point where you didn't have to pay for summoning, when you had to put points aside. Flesh Eater Courts were steaming hot garbage.
Oh yeah,
they were trash.
The thing that I liked about their summoning,
now they're top tier.
Yeah, the thing I liked about their summoning was that it was all built around returning models to units, and then Legion of Nagash got that, and I was like, right. Mr. Mephisto, I love this conversation in the chat. He's like, "What's your counterplay to Khorne summoning? Don't die. What's to Flesh Eater Courts? Not let them have command points. Legion of Nagash, just fucking best of luck. Like stand on their shit." And then Gary pointing out that it won't even fucking work with their fucking little thingy thing. Even Nurgle, like they just get it for having a tree. Put it where someone can't stand next to it. There is... Khorne, don't die. Also, don't hurt their stuff. But I do like that. Summoning fair should be free. Summoning units should not cost you points. You shouldn't have to use stuff. I think Games Workshop have nailed it with that. Absolutely fucking nailed it. Great rules work. Excellent. Great choice. They just need to balance it in the same way that they've balanced Seraphon, where every summoning point that you're getting, you're going like, it's a trade-off. I am losing something for the potential of summoning later in the game. That is where the game should go, and that's why I'm really excited for Seraphon winning, because hopefully that's where things are going to move in the future. But yes, I agree. I love the conversation in the chat as well. Summoning is a very contentious issue that needs to be balanced.
Yeah.
And fair to say that armies with quite, let's say, gentle summoning, so summoning that is gentle on their army, are currently dominating the podium finishes at tournaments.
I would agree with that.
Until Seraphon, of course. Until Seraphon. They've kind of bucked the trend there. I love summoning. I will say I love summoning. I don't think it's bad. I think it's a wonderful part of the game. They just need to tighten a little bit. Legions of Asblar, though, you have no summoning, do you, Gabe?
I have 0 summoning.
Love to hear that.
Yeah.
Are you the?
But I'm actually.
Are you the only chaos? Are you the only Chaos allegiance without summoning? Oh no, Slaves to Darkness don't have summoning either, do they?
Slaves to Darkness don't. Who else doesn't? There's another faction. I'm trying to think of who it is.
Mixed Chaos, probably.
Or Mixed Chaos can take stuff
that can summon.
That can summon on their war scrolls.
Yep.
Like you've got the Ogrod Thaumaturge that can cast at people and then create dudes out of that fire that's melting the people.
That is one of the most fucked up summonings of all time. No, Skaven have summoning. Stonehewer, you are almost right, except on a 12, Skaven can summon Vermin Lords on a Screaming Lord for free.
That is very true.
That is fucked. So just ally in Kairos Fate Weaver and wait until you roll a 6 on 1 dice, which I'm okay with that. It's still, there's no sacrifice to it, because unless you roll like double 1s, the Screaming Bell is good, but rolling double 6 is unlikely, and then you have to have a Vermin Lord miniature to then summon. Not that anyone with a Screaming Bell will ever not have a Vermin Lord, but yes, their summoning is at least a little bit more fair. The only problem is that you don't see it coming, and when it happens, there's like a 200, 300 point miniature that just got added to the battlefield somewhere.
Fresh. But yeah, I think off the top of my head, I want to say that Legion of Asgore is probably the only Chaos faction that currently doesn't have summoning, unless there's some obscure thing that I'm missing, other than Slaves to Darkness. But they're more of a support piece for the 4 major
Yes.
God factions.
So what
I
you're
guess.
saying is your
So-
faction is the least of the Chaos factions. Like, Chaos Dwarves are the worst of all the Chaos factions because they can't summon.
Well, I think it's kind of like, you know how there's running races. I think all the other armies are doing a 100-meter dash,
Yeah.
and my army's doing a marathon because they're in peak physical condition.
I think a correction would be that your army is the
Actually, that was
7-Eleven.
a bad.
Your
Yeah,
army is at
that
the
was a bad,
7-Eleven across the road, being like, "Hey, did you guys fucking know we can get nachos here? Yeah, we should get. There's 2-for-1 on Powerade, so we should get
That
a
was a
lot of
bad
Powerade
example.
because we're gonna be sweaty after this." And then they're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, we're here to do something."
I mean,
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. We're here to run a race. Ah, fuck it. We'll eat nachos and drink Powerade. That's fine. So excited for Chaos Dwarves. I'm keen to see where that goes. No summoning. Hope that stays the same because I think summoning is something that quite quickly unbalances stuff. Now, Gabe, it is getting late. It is time to start wrapping stuff up. So so basically, is there anything you want to spruik? Are there any shout outs you want to make before we wrap it up?
mate, I'll race through some.
Go fucking go. First of all is obviously the Rune Axe Team Championship coming up later this year. That's obviously the biggie. Yep. And people
That's definitely one of them.
People in Australia, the details will be coming out whenever you fucking choose to release them. People internationally should get in contact with you if they want to put a team together, or even if they want to come along as a one-off as a mercenary, because
there's that option as well.
Because
definitely.
Australians will help you out. Don't watch Wolf Creek. If you are planning on coming to Australia and accepting the help of strangers, do not watch the Australian horror classic Wolf Creek. It will ruin you, and you will never be able to watch Better Homes and Gardens again. But yes, go.
Yeah,
shout outs. What do you have to say?
Okay, so shout outs. I'll have to shout out to my club, the Mango Mafia, and also the fellows over at Brishammer and Fail Charge. I've got... So I do a weekly blog and a weekly hobby painting thingy on Facebook. So if you want to follow me on Facebook, it's at the Rune Axe Wargaming. I'm also on Twitter at the Rune Axe. You can follow me along and do some stuff on there. And I do have a couple of events coming up that I'll be covering. I'm going to Heat 1 of the Australian Championships.
Yes, now this is big. Australia's having championships. The interesting thing is that they are only held in... There's 3 heats. All 3 are held in Brisbane.
No, yeah, there's only 2 heats in a final, but all of them... Yeah, and I'm painfully...
Wait, sorry, I think we just lost you. Did you just get a call? Are you right now on a phone call with somebody else, talking to them about how excited you are about War Dollies? Because, Gabe, that's not acceptable. I am here, the chat is obviously here, and we want to hear from you. So, I don't know what it's going to take for you to leave...
Hey, there you are.
Sorry, there you
I
are.
just dropped
Sorry, you're back from your little calls with whoever you were talking. Thank you for accepting us.
No, that's
Gabe.
all right.
So
no worries.
talk to us about the heaps. Yeah, triggered.
Yeah,
Hypno Kraken. Hypno Kraken is fucking furious.
So this is something that I wasn't sure whether it was going to come up, but I was prepared if it did. It's one of those things where I think it would have been great to have heats in different cities, and I sincerely hope that they do have heats in different cities. Because for people who aren't in Australia, it is bloody huge. And the fact that both heats and the finals are in the one city, unfortunately, it is what it is. I'm very fortunate to live about 15 minutes from the venue, but I'm very aware that it could have just as easily been in Melbourne or Sydney or somewhere else, and it would have been the same argument, but the other way around.
No,
so
I will say to be fair, the Hall of the Great Wolf, which is Mount Gravatt Games Workshop, is my old stomping ground, and it is the only place in Australia with enough tables to handle that many people.
That is also very true.
So I have no problem with that. I do see where the frustration comes from people outside of Brisbane, specifically Brisbane, in that the only place that you can go for the heat or the finals is like a northern, not particularly central area. So I understand where that frustration comes from. However, I think that everybody needs to understand that this needs to start somewhere. Now,
That's exactly right. It's like if the first one is a success,
perfect.
There's a better chance that next year it will be what everyone outside of Queensland wants it to be. And I
think what you need to ask yourself as a player is like, do I have a problem with what's happening? Or like, it's the other thing that you always ask yourself when someone does something that upsets you, instead of going like, I'm upset, I must be right and they must be wrong, you have to sit back and go like, why? Why is that your placement on this issue?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like looking at it from a business standpoint, them putting it in the Hall of the Great Wolf means that there is $0 outlaid, really.
Yep.
Other than some marketing and some merch.
Yeah.
You know. And so I understand why they've done it. I hope it changes in the future, but until that happens, we're all trying to make it a success because it's obviously, you know, it's given us access to Warhammer World exclusive models, which is massive, you know, and we don't want to kind of bite the hand that kind of gives us access to cool stuff.
Exactly. So. And at the end of the day, we've seen the success at the Warhammer Cafe in Texas, which I super badly want to go to, given that I'm on the same continent as it now. And so many American events that I want to go and check out. But the cool thing is it's like, okay, well, if this works and if it's a success, the potential is there to then expand. And whether that's into Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, unlikely to be Tasmania. I'm sorry to say. If you're watching from Tasmania, you're like the one person with a full set of eyes and an internet connection there. But it's lovely to have you here. Please subscribe to us on either Twitch or Patreon. We would love to have your patronage if you can afford it. I mean, we're just impressed that you have electricity. But the thing is, it's not unfair to give your feedback in what you would like, in what you are maybe disappointed on, and what you want things to build to. But it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It doesn't mean you don't support it, because ultimately, if we look at what that might lead to, it's only good things for the Australian community.
Exactly. And so I'm personally pumped. I'm stoked. Like I'm not, you know, unaware of the fortunate location that I am in. But yeah, I am hoping that it leads to great things for Australia, because we've been crying out for support for a long time, and they're finally giving it to us. So I'm thrilled. Yeah, couldn't be happier.
Your main issue is going to be that like you need to make it into the final, and you're playing with Legions of Asgore. So
that is the challenge.
That's going to be a challenge. Like, how much work can I realistically do?
Well, you see, in 2,000 points, so I painted 1,000 points ready for last week's event. Yep. This week, I am painting another 1,000 points, so I am very busy. But I've got a couple of tricks in my new list that will hopefully do well, including, and I'm glad this came up as well, because I've just finished painting a big conversion that Blake Kerwick did for me. So there's a unit called the Skullcracker War Engine, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much just a tank covered in axes, right?
This is correct. Now, Forge World no longer makes this model, which poses the challenge of coming up with something to
it also poses the question, is it technically still a model in Age of Sigmar?
Well, I mean, there's rules for it.
Got me over a barrel there. I was a big supporter of Swift Hawk Agents, and you can't get their models. So, yep, fair enough.
Yeah.
You've got me over a barrel.
So Blake converted up a model for me, and I've just finished painting it. I'm putting that up tonight, Australian time, which will be in about 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
I'm posting that up on Facebook, and I'll probably put it on Twitter as well. And that's going to be kind of the centerpiece of my army. So I don't know whether I'll qualify or not, because it's top 6 out of 24 players, right? Which is going to require some...
You got 2 heats to try for, though, right?
Well, I've only got tickets to heat 1. So So I've only got one shot and one opportunity
Yep.
to seize everything I ever wanted.
And you don't want mum's spaghetti.
No.
No. Well, look. Well, that's not too far away, actually, is it?
No, it's literally this weekend.
Okay.
So I've got like 4 days.
Okay. Well, I'll get it.
So-
I'll get a statement from you, and I'll get an
Yes.
update afterwards, and I'll bring it to
Okay.
everybody next Monday as to how you
Excellent.
went, just in case they're
Excellent.
curious.
No worries.
Mum's spaghetti, mum's spaghetti. Yes, definitely mum's spaghetti. Any other shout outs before we wrap it up?
No, that's pretty much it, mate. I'm just anyone. I'm always happy to chat Warhammer. If people want to find me online, I'm all about it. So
Fantastic.
yeah, come have a chat and we'll have a few laughs.
All right. Well, with that, we're just going to finish on the fact that Legions of Asblar is shit, and I'm going to silence you off the stream so that there's no more responses there. Or maybe there is. I don't know. I don't really understand technology that well. I might actually need to wait for you to leave the chat room before I could talk shit. But at the Rune Axe is your thing. Oh yeah, no, silencing you doesn't work. There's no way to silence him, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to wrap it up there, though. We're almost coming up on 3 hours, which was a big one, but I had two.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, right? That's huge. But I've had Andy earlier, who was spectacular. I've had you, who is an absolutely lovely person. And just to finish off with a quote, because I've been meeting so many wonderful people from Canada and America, and I'm realizing that I don't understand any of your local languages. And on the subject of me just trying to make statements that are stuck in my head and keep popping in, I think the way that we should begin and end every Australian AoS show is with the universal greeting of Bar Weep Grana Weep Mini Bong, because then only a handful of people will understand what it means and what it's from. If you are in the chat and you did catch that and you know what it means, I fucking love you. You're a fucking legend. And you're also old enough to be my friend. But look, that's it from us for today. There's obviously more coming every Monday. There's conversations about a lot of Ward Ollie stuff to happen. But thank you so much to Andy earlier, to Gabe now from the Rune Axe Wargaming. Check him out if you want to check his stuff. And we'll be back next week. Lovely to have you. And we'll see you next week, beautiful people.